You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Hey folks, it's Matty D. I just wanted to let you know that we had a little bit of an audio problem for the last half hour of the episode. So the audio's a little different there, but I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks.
Welcome to the Middle Age Movies Podcast. Three guys saying, snakes. Why'd it have to be snakes? My name is Tim, and my podcasting partners are...
Montana Matt.
And Dungeon Master Rick.
And joining us tonight, a man who's been locked in the age-old battle of why do you keep hitting yourself? From the Dungeon Master Rick's childhood, it's his brother Bobby. Say hello, Bobby.
Hello.
All right, Rick, why don't you tell us what historical documentary film we're watching tonight?
Okay, so tonight we are watching the 1981 movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, number 669 from the book of 1001 Movies You Should Watch Before You Die, written by Lawrence Kasdan, George Lucas, and Philip Kaufman, directed by none other than Steven Spielberg, and starring Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, Paul Freeman, and John Rhys Davies.
All right. Thanks, Rick. Okay, guys. Since we went back into Rick's childhood and we grabbed his wonderful brother, I'm going to ask you first, Bobby. When was the first time you watched Raiders of the Lost Ark?
All right. Well, I don't really remember the exact first time. This is one of those movies that I think I have always been watching, like time and time again, and maybe a lot of listeners can relate to that. But I do have an early memory of the beginning of the movie, like where that big boulder is rolling down and Indiana's running out. Like I remember that from when I was a kid. That's the first memory, and I don't know, maybe 8 years old or something. That's the earliest of this movie that I have.
Awesome. Yeah, I can remember many a childhood of me running out a garage door trying to do the Indiana Jones thing. So yes, much like you, I remember watching it at an early age. But before I dive into it, Tim, when was the first time you saw Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Can't say 100%, but I gotta believe I've probably seen this one at the theater. You know, I'm 11 years old now, and I'm pretty sure I'm getting to the point where my dad's like, I can finally start dragging this kid to some decent movies. So I'm pretty sure this was probably something he took me to the theater to see. I wish I could remember, for sure that was the case. But, again, I was 11. It's a long time ago. I've seen it so many times since then. I've seen it, every, format you can think of. Seen it on TV, seen it on HBO, seen it on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. So, yeah, I've seen it at about every format you could want, except for Laserdisc, like you, Matthew. But I do own the Laserdisc of it. I have recently purchased at a garage sale this summer, prominently displayed with a unopened VHS tape sitting next to it.
That is awesome. That's a prize collection right there. So what about you, Rick? When was the first time you saw Raiders of the Lost Ark?
I have no idea. Here I am again, coming out with another movie where you're like, when have you seen it? I'm like, I'm just a little bit too young to remember when I see this one. So I have no idea when I first seen this one. Probably the first time I remember seeing it, I was probably watching something on like USA or some cable TV show or something like that, where it's playing during the day on a Saturday or a Sunday or something like that. Like for me, it would have been a matinee, but it wasn't like at the theater or anything like that. But yeah, that's probably when I probably first remember. Yeah, I have no idea though. I've seen it like a bunch of times though. Just like probably many people. This is a very common movie.
Yes, yeah. I can remember my earliest memory of watching this movie, and I remember going to the local video store and renting it on VHS. And I remember the artwork on the box was the classic movie poster that actually said Raiders of the Lost Ark, not Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
This movie was always like one of my favorite ones to watch as I was growing up. It was like right up there with Empire. Like I couldn't tell you the exact day or date of watching this film, but yeah, it's always been part of my my childhood. And like I said, I always remember running to the garage door trying to get underneath it just as it's coming down, much like that boulder sequence. Of course, now today you can't do that because they got the stupid laser eyes that prevent you from tripping and setting the door off.
You know, one thing that I will say about this, though, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but for the longest time, I always thought that the Temple of Doom was the first one that came out. I don't even know why that was. But when I was younger, I always thought I don't know. It seemed like maybe the time period or something, or I have no idea. Maybe it was because I had more vivid memories of Raiders than the Temple of Doom. But for whatever reason, I had always thought that Temple of Doom was the older movie.
I'm gonna bank on Rick that, much like many of these other movies, you watched that one first before you seen Raiders. That would be my guess, because that seems to be your MO. Always watch the second one first.
No, man.
Or don't watch them all until the day before we do it and then get yelled at.
You know
by
what
the people.
I think it might have been for me? I think it might have been that, like, the Temple of Doom was cool, but Raiders was just so much more iconic. It seemed like maybe the other one was the first one in the series because it maybe wasn't as good, you know? Not
Felt
that,
clunkier.
yeah, not the Temple of Doom was a bad movie, by the way.
Well, I think part of it too is because story-wise, Temple comes first, and I think that's what throws a lot of people off because they just automatically assume that because it's story-wise it comes first, that it was the first movie made.
That maybe makes sense.
I remember thinking the same thing. Like even I don't know, only just but 5 years, not even 5 years ago, I remember thinking that, and it was like, no, that's not right. And I was like, holy cow, how did I not know this?
I think I knew it just because I lived through it. So it was one of those, when they're coming out, you kind of remember how that works. So that's probably why. Plus the fact that it didn't have the Indiana Jones moniker before the title of the movie.
But all right. Well, Tim, since you're our resident film director, what are you requesting tonight for our synopsis?
All right, Matthew, I hope you've been working on your Harrison Ford, because tonight I would like you to read the synopsis as Professor Jones as he submits an entry into his journal.
All right, princess, calm down. I got this. All right, so there I am, flying the Millennium Falcon. Oh, wait, whoops, wrong movie.
Hang on, wrong movie, Rick.
All right, September 22nd, 1936. I've been approached by U.S. military intelligence agents looking for information regarding the Lost Ark of the Covenant. Allegedly, this Christian artifact has the power to make any army which carries it before them invincible. The Germans believe they have located the Ark in Tanis, Egypt, and Adolf Hitler has ordered its recovery. With the help from my friend Marcus Brody, the American government has agreed to fund my expedition to Egypt to recover the Ark before the Nazis find it. Now, my only obstacle is locating my old flame Marion, Ravenwood in Nepal, and to obtain the headpiece to the Staff of Ra. Only with this headpiece can I accurately locate the Well of Souls, where the Ark is believed to be hidden. Time is of the essence, as the Nazis have actively engaged in a massive archaeological dig in Tanis to find the Well of Souls. Also, I've received word that my arch-rival Rene Belloc has been hired by Germans to oversee the dig. I know I'm crazy for attempting to recover the Ark at the Nazi dig, but I can't allow such a powerful divine artifact fall into their hands.
Very nice, Matthew. Very nice. Woo. Well done. You sounded very professor-like.
Yeah. I was trying not to go too Clint Eastwood here.
Yeah, you might have missed your mark with that one.
All right. Well, it is 1936, and we're watching a film that had inspired George Lucas. Well, it was inspired by George Lucas watching the old serials, much like Star Wars. And I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but this movie also lends a lot of thanks to James Bond. And if you know, and you know that.
I think I do know, Matt. Tell me though what I know so that I know it.
Steven Spielberg was approached by Albert Broccoli to possibly direct a James Bond movie. And this was after, it wasn't E.T., it was
Jaws, maybe?
It might have been Jaws. But yeah, he was approached and he was telling his buddy George Lucas about it. Lucas is like, well, I got this idea for a character that's kind of like James Bond. And then that's where they came up with Indiana Jones, which I thought was kind of cool. If it wasn't for the fact that, Steven Spielberg was approached to direct James Bond, we wouldn't have an Indiana Jones, which is kind of fortuitous considering The Last Crusade.
Indeed.
Yeah, Last Crusade, pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not pretty good. It's pretty awesome.
All right. So, we open up in India. I'm sorry. We open.
India? I don't think so.
Whoops, sorry. Hold on. That was Temple of Doom. Can you tell I teach my kids geography? We start off in South America in 1936, and Indiana is actually looking for a golden idol, and he's walking through the rainforest with several they're not Sherpas because this is South America, but I would say guides, and they're looking for he's looking for this golden idol. And did you guys happen to notice one of his guides? Did the guide look very familiar to you guys?
Yeah, man. I had to look that up because I was like, dude, this dude looks so familiar. I was like, where have I seen this dude in? And this dude is like in everything. Alfred Molina.
Satipo.
Satipo, yeah. Yeah. That dude was he was like the Octo-Man or whatever his name was in the Spider-Man.
Whoa.
He was
The Octo-Man? I'm sorry, but I'm playing my comic book card, okay? It's Dr. Octopus.
all right. Yes, that's right. Dr. Octavius. Yeah. Well, you know what though? Look, when Marvel was cool, like phase like 1 and 2, I like watched it because people were like, yo, this is so good, right? So I watched it. And then it like went down the drain. And I was like, man, something that was once kind of cool is now like totally really bad, man. So like, I don't know. I mean, I don't have mad respect for Marvel or anything like that. Just put it out there. But no, he was in a bunch of other stuff too, though. Like The Sorcerer's Apprentice and bunch of other movies that you've probably seen you just don't realize.
He's what Joey calls that guy in that thing. Yeah, I recognize him. He's that guy in
Yeah.
that thing. But you can never name the thing or the guy he was playing, but you know you've seen him.
You know, it is kind of neat to see when you go back to watch older movies and you see, you know, well-known actors now in bit parts and very young looking. So I thought it was kind of cool to see
young looking.
Yeah. I think at the time he was like 28. So I was like, wow, Alfred Molina, 28, man. He looks young. So, but yeah, so this opening sequence is kind of neat because you kind of get a feeling of like those classic 30 pulp novels or the classic 30 pulp films where they introduce the heroic character. You know, we see Indy from behind with the back, and we get his reveal when he pulls out his whip and he pulls a gun away from one of his guides. And I just thought this is a classic, you know, 1930s action film hero. What do you think of this opening sequence, Bobby?
So, like, to that point, when he pulls that whip out and it's like, and snatches the gun and you know, Alfred Molina, the character, he just like, what? Holy cow. And that's kind of sets the stage that this guy is like not to be messed with. You know, he kind of didn't quite see like through his back, but then bam, like not to be messed with.
Yeah, it is kind of cool. It's like he hears the gun click before, you know, he's aware that it's there. And so it's honestly, I think it's a classic super hero reveal. What about you, Tim? What do you think?
It's really cool. I mean, how can you not like this? You're right in the action, which is something Spielberg always does. He just throws you right into something right out the gate. You don't really know what's going on. You're seeing not so much Indy in the beginning, but you're seeing, you know, basically his guides and the people that are, you know, just basically pack muling for him, and they're nervous. You could tell they're looking around, they're freaked out because I'm sure they're going into some sacred spaces and they're being followed and they know it. So finds that little dart and pulls it out and looks at it, and those guys all run over to look at it and they're freaking out because like, oh my God, they're here, they're following us and stuff. So it's a very classic. And like you said, it makes you think of all those 30s, 40s, 50s adventure films that, you know, for as bad of probably B movies that most of them were, you still like the heightened adventure that it gives. The only two things that really wreck it for me is when you get the Indy reveal, I'm looking at him going, you got these guys, they're dressed in shorts, they're sweating through, and here's this guy wandering through the jungle in a leather jacket. Like, how does that even work? Like, why is he not passing out? This makes no sense other than make him look absolutely cool.
You know why? I got you, Tim. This is why. Because Indiana Jones is just so damn cool. That's why.
Right. It's not proper to perspire. He's just one of those guys. You know, yeah. A hero never sweats. And I think the other thing that gets me is it's always my rule of every movie. He whips that gun out of the guy's hand. He goes, takes off. And he keeps walking. I'm like, no, you go get the gun. You never leave the gun for him to come back and get. 2, You can never have enough guns. You never leave any guns laying on the ground. You pick every one of them damn things up because you never know when you're going to need it. And later on, he needs it. He doesn't have it. So, but we'll get there.
Well, it's also the jungle, so once it gets thrown in the underbrush, it's lost.
It's in the water though. It tumbles down and goes right into the edge of the water. It's right there.
Yeah, it wasn't that deep in there. Like he could have grabbed it, but that wasn't on his mind though. He wanted something else in his hand, something greater.
That's true. Yeah. But it's a giant hand cannon. I mean, you tell me you can't find that thing, and that thing's a beast. It's like I just reach down. I don't have to look. It's right there. Let me pull that out.
Actually, Tim, and I thought about this. Like that was one heck of a gun for 1936. Like holy, this is like a Dirty Harry style gun, and they had that back then. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like it was probably one of the old Colts. Yeah, it was single action like Western Colts. They were all pretty big guns back then. They're firing like 45 long Colt rounds, and that's a rifle round and a pistol. So, yeah.
Well, son, what you got there is a Colt Peacemaker.
Yeah.
The one thing I gotta say, especially with like the whip crack and the gun flying, and I like how the sound effects kind of add an extra effect in the movie. Growing up watching the film, I never really noticed it until much later on in life. I mean, all like the punches and stuff that you hear, I mean, it sounds like he's really fighting. He's really hitting something. I mean,
I have to say you're right, man. Those sound effects was almost as good as the Batmans with Adam West, man. The pow, pang, pack.
Yeah. Well, and not that, but it's cool. Like you've never seen anybody use a whip outside of somebody beating somebody with it. Whether it's in this like the Civil War that movie that we've seen, something like where we watch Glory and they used a whip in there to discipline somebody or something along those lines. You've never seen anybody really wield it effectively as a weapon, as a tool outside of just something to suppress people with. So that was really cool to see that skill level with a whip and it being part of this guy's repertoire. He didn't go for the gun. He went for the whip. Like that's his thing is like, you can shoot somebody all day long with a gun, but it takes a really cool guy to disarm a guy with a whip.
Yeah, the 80s definitely brought the whips back with Indiana Jones on one end and on Simon Belmont on the other end, for those of you who play video games during the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, the Castlevania.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to say, look, when I checked out this intro, the thing that struck me was two things, and they really worked hand in hand. It was the really spooky and like kind of dark atmosphere that was surrounding this scene. And the other thing was really heightened that aspect, and that was the score. John Williams is like, man, just hit it out of the park throughout the whole movie, but you see the first bit of it right here, like literally setting the stage for all the audience to be like, man, this is like kind of a serious kind of moment, and it like locks you in to the movie without really necessarily saying anything. I think the first few frames, few seconds even, there was nothing being said. It was just clips of the jungle, and you got the music, and there's like bats and stuff, and you see these really ominous statues and things like that. And the one thing that seems to be a constant all the way through this entire movie was that Indiana Jones doesn't believe in supernatural bullshit.
right.
And it starts here. It's very, very, and it's all the way through, and it doesn't change. He's just not into that stuff.
Yeah, it is neat that, they establish that he's an archaeologist. And I think this movie kind of helps clinch that it made archaeology kind of interesting, almost adventurous.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really neat. And, even as you said, to the hokiness of like mumbo jumbo, he definitely doesn't take it, especially after looking at the totems and stuff. He just carries on.
But that's almost the presence of every American adventure in all these films. You've always got the natives freaking out, and the Americans like, pish posh. That doesn't mean nothing,
You uncivilized people, you. Yeah.
Yes.
And then I liked how they kind of also take that whole archaeology adventure a little further in the fact that he goes into this shrine or this temple thing, and we get to see like booby traps. I mean, actual archaeological booby traps set up to keep away thieves and stuff. And I thought, wow, that's something you don't see like on National Geographic when you see all those, archaeological digs. You don't see Dr. Hawass out there trying to navigate over like a crocodile pit in one of the pyramids.
Still in print if they just put a little bit more of that in their magazine.
You know what you do here when they get a new shaft, you'll hear them explain why they have to keep that shaft open for like 3 days before they walk in. Not because of some curse or some hooey-dooey stuff, but because there's some ancient mold that'll kill you as soon as you walk in because of what
Right.
happened with Howard Carver and all them. I mean,
Right.
it's cool both ways, I guess, but it'd be cooler if they just said it was some sort of curse.
You know, the traps are totally awesome. You're absolutely right, Matt. But the one thing I had to question for a second is, what is the size of the damn spider that can make a web that freaking big across the cave entrance? I mean, the entire cave entrance is one giant web. I'm waiting for the one for the Lord of the Rings to come whipping out. And be like, take these guys away and stuff. And it's just like, good Lord. Then you just see those little tarantulas. I'm like, what, did they work like as a group? Are they like a hive mind? What's going on here?
They're little contractors. They got little construction hats on, and they're like making this huge intricate web system.
Right.
So I did think it was kind of neat that when we do see the spiders, like Indy's got like 3 or 4 of them on his back, and then when Alfred Molina turns around, he's got like 20 of them on there, and I'm like, okay.
It was even cooler that they were real spiders. I mean, it was just awesome. I guess initially when they put them on them, they didn't really move. They just sat there because they were all males. They would just sit. But then they brought a female and tossed it in the mix, and then they all got excited and started moving around a lot. So that's why they start getting real active all of a sudden.
Nah, forget that. I ain't getting no tarantulas on me. I mean, you got to have a stunt double on that, okay?
So you're going in with the snakes then is what you're telling me?
So let's not get hasty, okay?
Okay, we'll discuss that a little later on down the
I do like how he just kind of like grabs his whip and like he just nonchalantly like brushes it off his back and then brushes off Sapitos. I just thought that was kind of neat. But then later on, we find out that, spiders aren't a problem, but he's got other problems. You get to see the idol, and it's very iconic, this whole opening sequence with him trying to steal the idol. You get the part where he like fills the bag up and he swaps the idol out for the bag, and the weight's just not quite right. Now, when I watch this, every time I watch this, I can't help but think of the Weird Al Yankovic movie UHF and his parody of this scene. And I just think it's hilarious. It's become so iconic that there are parodies in several movies of this whole sequence. And before I go too far into that, so Bobby, what do you think of the cool booby traps and just the excitement that this whole sequence is bringing us?
Yeah, so that totally awesome. And as Indy is meandering through that, it's one after another. You know, when he sees the idol, he's like looking at the ground, right? Which are these tiles going to fall in or something? And he puts the torch base on there, and then out shoots a arrow. It's like, whoa, right there, like shit. All right, I got to walk around this, and I do think, though, to the sand, like probably Indiana should have known that maybe he needed to keep the freaking sand in there and not let it out because gold is heavy. But nonetheless, to your question, all the booby traps was really cool. And as I alluded to, my first memory was that big rock ball coming down, and that was like another, oh shit, like you better hightail it out of there. Like, and then he sees, I think before that, he sees Alfred Molina. He got into the light, right? Because he told him, don't get into the light. And he forgot about that. He was hightailing it out of there and ate it.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Tim? What do you think of the end sequence there, or the opening of it?
It's so cool. I mean, how can you go wrong? It's a creepy-ass Aztec cave full of booby traps. Not just one, but a bunch of them. And I like how...
Actually, it wasn't an Aztec cave. It's an Incan cave because it's South America. Actually,
I'm sorry. Incan cave. I stand corrected.
No. They said it was the Javitas, right? It was the Javitas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Trump, how you like that, Rick?
Javitas.
How you like that?
To be fair, the Javitas was the local tribe, not the ancient tribe. So
They're the guys that built the temple on top of the temple?
Right.
Okay, anyway. Yeah, but they're cool. And there's just multiple traps. I like that he finds his buddy because he's like, oh, yeah, a buddy of mine came and he never returned. He finds him impaled on that one. So you kind of understand that was his buddy. And then, as Bobby was saying, he checks that floor with that torch and he just acts like, another day at the office. He pulls it off, just keep on moving. The other guy's like, you can just see he needs a new pair of underwear for sure. He's done. He's already freaking out. So I love that whole sequence. I like the idol. I mean, the idol's just really cool. I think if you want to see somebody reproduce that, I'm pretty sure Adam Savage has a video on his site where he completely creates that idol like a perfect replica of it. So it's pretty interesting. You should go out and check it out. But I've always had this morbid thought that you're watching them with that idol and that sandbag and they're going back and forth. And as morbid as this thought is, there's been one guy in some war zone where a guy is like, click. Oh shit, I just stepped in the mine. Guys, I can't see an Indian. He walks up that bag and he's putting dirt in it and stuff. It's just like, are you sure about this? It's just, oh yeah, we'll get this, no problem. It's going to put it on here. I don't know why I always think this, but I do. It's messed up. I understand, but I just had that weird thought. But yeah, and then on the way back, you got that giant boulder, which is a giant boulder. That's not CG. They built that entire thing. It's a giant fiberglass thing. And they had him do it, I think, like 10 or 11 times. And he outruns it every time. Even the trip, he like tripped for real. They just left it in because it looks so realistic. But yeah, I mean, it's just, that set is fantastic. The detail in it, just everything about it is just cool. It makes you want to be an archaeologist, which is not really what Indy is. He's more of like a Tomb Raider than he is an archaeologist.
Right.
He's basically like a Tomb Raider with a PhD. But regardless, you're just like, yeah, I could do that for a living. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, too, because we talk about the sandbag and swapping out the golden idol. And for the longest time, I thought, well, he must not have had enough sand. It must have been too light. But if you think about it, that stone depression actually sank. So I think he might have had too much sand in it because it was probably balanced enough for the gold figures.
Nah, no way, man. Gold is heavy as hell, man. No way.
Yeah, I know, but if he had too much sand in it, it would be heavier than the golden idol, and that's what causes it to depress down. That's my theory.
Well, I would guess that the sand bag was dispersed in a wider platform than the base of the idol that was probably like the size of a pop can.
Mm.
And it just was too broad. And he thought he got away. That was another classic scene. He was like, yeah. And then when that thing went down, it was like, shit, everything's falling apart in there, right? Like the whole interior is falling apart, ready to caving in. It's like, oh, what just happened?
You know, Bobby, you mentioned that, and I think that's kind of synonymous for the entire movie. I mean, he gets to a point where he thinks he succeeds, and then something happens. You know, he survives that, and then something happens. It's an "and then," as our good friend Joey would always say. I think that's a really cool sequence. After he survives, he gets the idol back from poor Sapito, who died on the grate, I guess you could call it, the arrows, the metal, I don't know, contraption.
Yeah, booby trap, that's right. But yeah.
That's when we're introduced to Renee Belloc, who we eventually find out is going to be one of the main antagonists to the film. But when we first meet him, he's kind of like a offhand character who's basically an antagonist for this opening sequence for Indy. And I thought it was kind of neat because he's sitting there and he's got the classic pith hat on. He's what you think of when you think of an archaeologist. He's talking to Indy, and you get the idea that he knows him. This happened to him once before with Indy, and we get the whole conversation that, you know, no matter what you possess, I will always take. And here's a guy who's actually studied the local area. He's learned the natives' languages, and he even points out to Indy, he's like, yeah, you could probably tell them about me if you knew how to speak Javitos, but you don't. And what does Javitos come down to? Indy, he hightails it out of there. He has that moment where he can get free, and so he runs, and we see the whole running sequence through everything we were just through. He's running back, and he's running to a sea duck, and I just thought it was hilarious that the guy's just sitting there fishing, just minding his own business. He's your atypical, bush pilot. He's not expecting anything extravagant, and all of a sudden he looks over and he sees Indiana Jones running down this field with all of these Javitos behind him. After him, I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna be chucking my thing and starting that plane up pretty quick. So I thought it was a neat little, I don't know, humorous moment for the characters. Rick, what do you think of this whole sequence?
So you had mentioned booby traps a number of times, and whenever you say that, I'm always going back to like booby traps from Goonies, and I have to give it to the camera work in these scenes because both in the temple, when you take a look at where those traps were, it was like super clear where those traps are. However, when Indiana Jones is navigating through them, then you're like, the way that the camera's positioned, it makes it seem as though it was like really difficult to properly maneuver around them to get to where the idol was. When he's leaving to the airplane, again, he's being chased by these natives, and the camera work makes it seem like both he's further away, and then in a moment's notice, they're like right on him. You know what I'm saying? Especially when he's coming over the hill and they're like right there. Like I thought that was really, really clever. And for the record, just so you know, I had a moment. You guys, no one really talked about this, but that big door, that slab door was closing in the temple. I had a moment like that where at the, you know how Indiana Jones, he rolled underneath it, his hat fell off and he grabbed the hat, you know what I mean? Yeah, this one time, I won't give you the whole story, but this one time I was being chased by a bull and I had to roll underneath an electric fence and my hat fell off and I had to grab my hat. So like, yes, that was something. That was something else. But yeah, and by the way, I did like that vine was a nice little touch there when he was getting onto the plane, you know?
Yeah.
I think he swung across some vine or whatever. I think that was a nice little touch.
You know, I gotta say, I think I kind of like the idea of having your brother on the show with us, because then I can actually look at him and go, so the whole escaping the bull story, Bobby, is that bullshit?
I don't know where he would have had that, but I don't see him making it up either. So I would believe it, and I would ask him later, where was that at? And how were you doing running from something? It'd be like, to be continued. I want to know what's with this story.
I told you and Tim that one time about the fire, you know what I'm saying?
No.
And I think there were questions. I think there were questions like, what the hell? What's going on with this bull? And I'm like, look, don't worry about it, all right?
I remember the story, so that definitely happened around a fire. I remember questioning Rick extensively about it. I also remember I was drinking a lot that night and don't remember any of the answers to the questions that I asked.
Well, I tell you what, listener, if you want to find out what that story is, write us at mamreviewpodcast@gmail.com, and in the heading put, what the hell did Rick do to that bull? All right. Indiana's making his escape. Tim, did you have any other thoughts on this whole sequence?
No, again, it's a really fun sequence. The chase with the natives is awesome. My only problem again with that, and I didn't really question it until my wife said it. She goes, they're in the jungle, right? I'm like, yeah. Then where did this giant clear field come from that he's running down? And I'm like, you're not exactly wrong on that one. I mean, where would you have this giant clear field? And then he grabs that vine which is attached to the world's largest tree, apparently, so it can go way out into the water. He drops down, and then all you see is jungle behind him again. I'm like, that is the weirdest cut I've ever seen, which I'm overthinking, and I know I'm nitpicking it a little bit, but I was just like, yeah, where would you don't normally have like ton of jungle and then like open field and then jungle again. So getting past that, I enjoyed the sequence. It was a lot of fun. It was cool to watch the natives try to get them. Although the other thing is, I watched some of those natives like shoot their bow and make the weakest bow shots I've ever seen. It's like they pull it just a little bit, let that arrow's barely going past them. You know, it just is really weak. You can tell.
Well, they clearly weren't the whole recurve bow. Honestly, you know what? Now that I think about it, you have a point with that, because if you look at them, they would have at least had some measure of recurve. They look like the type of bow that I made when I was like 10 years old. And I'm like, here's the stick and it's bent slightly. I'm going to put a string on it and then wonder why did the arrow not go anywhere?
Basically shooting it into your foot while you're moving forward. Yeah. It's just dropping down and pegging you in the foot. Yeah. So it was kind of weak in that regard, but it was still a lot of fun. It just to listen to him yell like, start the plane. And the guy's got that fish. He's like, crap. So, it was a cool way to get him elegantly out of this situation and into the main plot of the story.
So the two things that I think about this sequence too is he swings into the river and he swims to the plane and he manages to catch on to its pontoons. But I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of weird stuff in the Amazon. Leeches, fish that swim up into your pee hole. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not swimming in that water. I'm probably going to wind up getting killed by those natives.
Yeah, well, I think you're okay unless you're going to pee yourself while you're on your way to the plane. You're probably okay in that regard. And yeah, if you know the water's like that, just don't drink it. Keep the mouth shut when you jump in the water. But I'm going to take that over, 150 angry natives with pointy arrows that might get 2 feet past them or their little blowguns of death.
Poisonous arrows, right? They're poisonous that he's for sure going to be a goner if he gets with that.
If he's got the leather jacket, he'll be safe. They'll just bounce off the leather jacket.
Right. The blow
Well, don't forget to
darts.
get the blow
Yeah.
darts too, because they're
Yeah.
running with the blow darts. And if I learned anything from the Three Stooges, if you have a blow dart, chances are you're going to suck that blow dart into your throat, and then he's dead anyway. So
Did
you
you
don't have to worry
notice
about him.
how many blow darts was in the guide's back? Like, you would think like 2 or 3 would be enough, but there was like 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, you know what? We're going to put this blow dart in him. Everyone at the same time. Now!
There it is. I think you figured it out. They used all their blow darts on the guy. They're like, shit, this guy's going to come out. We got to have something. Pick up a stick and put a string on it. We'll just shoot him with arrows.
Well, or, if you think about that, yes, he had like 100 arrows in his back. That probably was the motivation to say, yeah, I'm going to jump into this unknown waters and take my chances and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And jump in the water. He does. He swims to the plane, and then we get the establishment that Indy's afraid of slithery, crawly reptiles, and he crawls into this airplane, and he freaks out. And his pilot's like, "Oh, it's just Reggie." Who names their pet with human names?
Man, who flies around with a plane with a snake in it? Other than Samuel L. Jackson, nobody.
You know what though? This does become a really, really cool feature of the Indiana Jones series, that like these archaeologists, they're like Tim said, they're kind of like treasure hunters, but they have a weakness. Like every single one, they got a weakness. You know what I'm saying? Like his weakness is snakes. In Last Crusade, you find out his dad's weakness is rats. Like everyone's got this one creature that's like a no-go. In a Temple of Doom, that lady, I think it was like everything was her weakness.
Yeah. All the bugs. I think it was like all the bugs. Yeah.
All the bugs. Yeah.
Yeah, Billy.
Billy. Yeah.
Billy.
Yeah.
And I love that running theme. That's like really, really
But
cool.
that scene was iconic though.
Yeah.
Right? Because now we know what his fear is that we're going to see, not just this movie, as you mentioned, but from forever.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. It's the kryptonite to our hero in this franchise. But he manages to get away, and now he's back in the States, and he's at Stanford, and we get to see him in his teaching element, with a tweed jacket, and teaching in front of the students about archaeology, and he's talking about a Neolithic period, and we learn how to spell Neolithic on the chalkboard. I thought that was a very humanizing moment for our hero.
He's a professor. He's like, how do we spell that?
Yeah. And then, as our secondary character, Marcus Brody, comes in, we kind of see what's going on in the classroom, and we look over and we see that, Harrison Ford's a young man. He's probably pulling in some ladies, but he's got his students that are his female students seem to be flying over him, because if you notice, like all the female students are all on one side of the classroom, because they're talking about the professor. They're like, yeah, he's like Gilligan's Island professor. We like him. And that one girl writes the message to him on the eyelids. I just thought that was, again, hilarious, because he has to take a double take, like a little sidestep. And I thought, how cool would it have been if they had cast another actress to play that role? Like, I don't know, maybe an actress famous for wearing a metal bikini and in a galaxy far, far away. Any thoughts on that, Tim?
Well, I was going to say this kind of harkens back to your whole James Bond 007, kind of comparison, because when Lucas and Spielberg sat down and talked about it, one of them, and I can't remember which one, they wanted Harrison Ford to be more like a 007, suave ladies man. I think it was actually Lucas that wanted that. And so that was actually written into the script pretty early on. And Spielberg was like, no, he really shouldn't be like that. He's more of an educated professor, really into archaeology and things like that. He wouldn't be a playboy like that. And there's a scene later on where we're going to see where Brody comes back to talk to him, and he's in a bathrobe in his home. And the reason is because he was entertaining a female friend. And that scene gets cut because, again, they don't want to portray him as this, suave ladies man. So that actually got cut out. So a little bit made it in there. And then in editing, they just kind of fixed it. But that's definitely where that's at. So I think that's why, all the young ladies are crooning over him, because he might have been a little bit of a professor player, in the original scripts.
Gotcha.
I thought that it was pretty cool that they in the writing that it made things that happened earlier in the film lead and explain things that happened later. So this establishment that his students are somewhat fawning over him, whether, in the final cut, you don't see that, but I don't think you need to. You just need to have that one little clip of that girl in the front row in order for it to make sense when we're introduced with the female lead or the
Right.
co-star, and that isn't the only time this is done. They do that multiple times. So you'll have an instance where it's a cool scene and it doesn't look like it means anything, but then later it'll circle back and then it'll explain why someone can do this thing from before, or why something happens explained from something that happened before. It's really good writing.
Sort of that literary device called foreshadowing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, well, how about you, Bobby? What did you think of our Professor Jones in this situation?
So I think it was needed. It's also another moment that you get to see that. Yep, like Tim said, he's like this ladies' man. They're all falling for him, but it really trips him up, right? He loses his train of thought. He starts stuttering. He's like, because he's like watching her blink her eyes, "I love you," and kind of Rick said, like you guys saying, foreshadowing. We see this, in the other movies where he's like the ladies' man. The women are fond of him. And that tells us in this movie, that's what we're going to expect for Indiana Jones.
Men want to be like him and women want to love him. Your typical hero, as they would say. And of course, we see that whole sequence, and then we have Marcus Brody come in, and he's talking to Indy about these military intelligence guys that want to see him, that they're at the university. But I also noticed something else that happens between Marcus and Indy as they're talking about things. A student leaves an apple on the desk for Professor Jones as kind of like a little kiss up thing, or brown nose thing, or teacher's pet kind of stuff. And there's Marcus. He just kind of like picks the apple up and shines it on his shirt and takes a bite out of it and steals Indy's apple. I'm like, okay, so Indy steals antiquities and Marcus Brody steals from Indy. So I think it's very formulaic in this whole sequence. Almost a foreshadowing of things getting stolen from Indy.
Matt, I have to tell you, I'm a teacher. If somebody did it to me, I would slap the apple out of their mouth, bro.
So, but yeah, so then, we get this camaraderie between Marcus and Indy, and it just kind of shows in this sequence as well as the following couple of sequences. And then we get to meet the guys from the military intelligence who talk about, Indiana Jones's former professor, Abner Ravenwood, at the University of Chicago. Being somebody who grew up in the Midwest, anytime somebody mentions Chicago or Chicago's linked into something, my ears kind of perk up because I'm like, oh, hey, I know where the University of Chicago's at. So I thought it was neat that they're kind of like, I don't know, making it more local for me. What did you guys think of that, Bobby?
When I hear anything about Chicago, I was like, that is neat. And it does, like, for me, touch home to that because I'm like, yeah, I can relate to that. Like, I know where that is. But with this scene, and maybe I'm speaking a little too much out of turn, but I felt like that scene meeting, the Army intelligence should have happened at some point later in time. So he just returns from this South American trip. He's like, Marcus, I had the idol. Let's go back. I can get it. And now they're telling him, hey, there's some digging going on in the desert. And it's like, how could that have happened if we think about the play of logic? How could that have happened so quickly if Bullock was just in the South American jungle and now he's doing an excavation here, like right when the Army intelligence is saying we've discovered this going on right here? And I was like, there might have maybe been like a 1 year later kind of thing or something to spin it off like that, but you wouldn't know that until you get to the end of the movie and you're like, oh yeah, how come that happened that way?
So it would help if they had a little more progression.
You don't really know it right when you're watching the movie. It just kind of makes sense because you don't anticipate Belloc to be there. But it isn't until the end. You're like, hey.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Does Brody work at the university with him, though? Brody might have finally came to the university to see him. Because let's face it, Indy's not just going away for the weekend. This is, jump on, basically, Southwest Airlines, fly down to South America, do your little adventure over the weekend, and then drive back for class, or fly back for class. So I'm thinking it happened during the summertime. And then he got back, he started his tenure for the year, and then Brody shows up. Because I think he doesn't really work for the university. He works for the museum, but it doesn't necessarily say
Museum of
he works
Antiquities.
but where is that? They never say that it's in the same place where Indy's at. So it may be in Chicago, like he came to visit Indy, and he's like, "Oh, I almost had it," because again, too, it's the 30s. I mean, phones aren't, they're there, but I don't know if everybody's got one. They're probably expensive to make calls, things like that. I don't know. I can see things, periods being much longer there. It's not like today where it just happens instantaneous. I was down in South America over the weekend. I'm back now. And nobody knows I was there. And then he shows up a day later, blah, blah, blah. Like even air travel takes time. You got to book the passage, get to where you're going, all that kind of stuff. I mean, not the planes are necessarily a whole lot slower. I mean, they're prop planes versus jets, but still, it's just things moved slower back then. So I'm thinking that they were not in the same place. And that's him showing up to not only find out about that idol, which is really not why he's there. He's really there because the Americans, the American intelligence community contacted him. He's like, you need to talk to this guy or whatever. So that's my take on it. So I think there was some time lapse in there. They just don't represent it well, to Bobby's point.
Gotcha. Yeah, they condensed it a little too much through editing or something.
Yeah. And I think we're just willing to go with it,
Yeah. I mean, it's an adventure movie. I mean, you gotta move the story along quickly. Yeah, I after watching the movie several times, going back and thinking, okay, yeah, maybe there should have been more time there. I agree with you on that one, Bobby. But yeah, I think just for moving the story forward, though, they kind of cut it.
Here's what I thought on this whole thing. The one thing that stuck out for me on this whole entire scene with the army officials coming in, I thought that they had laid down a really good plot device. I mean, it had this like era of supernatural vibe to it, but the thing about it is that this mission wasn't all hocus pocus. Like most people at this time when it came out, and you could even probably say to some extent, depending on the audience's age, even now could understand and knows a bit about this story that these army, the army officials, they seem like they had no idea what the hell they're talking about when they're talking about this ark. And it's like not some fake mythology. This is like foundation of religion, of like three major religions right here of the entire world. And it's like, this is this mission, and it's a real mythology that is supernatural in nature. And it's like, damn, man, this is so epic. This is epic. And it's not epic like in Lord of the Rings or Star Wars is epic, because those are totally fictional. It's fictional, but it's based in something that's highly rooted in the foundations of like even modern religion, I thought that was the epic part that is like a selling point for many, many people who are watching this movie, that like, yeah, I have heard of this story. Like, this is like a real story that I remember hearing about or reading about for some people, the guiding institution of my life, So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd like to add on a little bit to that, Rick, because you're hitting on something that I think is super important, and I think we should take a few moments to talk about the Ark of the Covenant, because this is the MacGuffin. This is what is going to propel Indy into action, and where you're like, well, he's not into all this supernatural bullshit, but apparently he believes heavily in religion, because, I mean, this is a major, embodiment of the power of God on earth. That's what the Ark is. I mean, and oddly enough, it's not in the Bible a whole lot for being such a quintessential holy relic. More people know what the Holy Grail is versus the Ark of the Covenant. So it's rarely brought up in the Old Testament at all. And he his explanation is 100% right, because he talks about Moses dropping the tablets is where the broken ones are at. No, it's not the broken ones. It's the actual real tablets. So when Moses goes back up and gets them and brings it back, it's supposedly the actual unbroken tablets are stored in that, because that's what an ark is. This is basically the filing cabinet of God, technically. This is like, my commandments are going to go in here. God tells Moses to build this ark. And so Moses builds it. In fact, they even describe it in the Bible. It's, it's like 4 feet long, I think 2.5 feet tall, 2.5 feet wide. It has rings in it that you can put poles in, because this is such a powerful artifact that, they were right at the end, where not only you cannot touch it because it can kill you, but you shouldn't look at the inside of it or anything like that. Even approaching it wrong could potentially kill you. So, because what this is that you have this thing where they're keeping these, basically these tablets, the word of God. And on top of it, you have the two, Sphinx-like angels that are on there. And these are basically the angels that they're cherubs, basically. And it's not like the little fat cherubs that you see the statues of, though. These are like serious Sphinx-like angels that attend to God. And then where between their wings is where God actually will commune with man. And he doesn't do that on the other level. He doesn't appear to man like any other time. It's like he ends up in the burning bush or something like that. He never fully comes. But in the ark, he will manifest. So this is the way that man communes with God. So this shows that Indy may not believe in superstition, but he wholly believes in the Christian religion and the Jewish religions and things like that, that this really does have significant power, because this is also the thing that, supposedly, helps the Jews survive. This is what brings the walls of Jericho down. This thing is super powerful. So that's why Hitler wants it. And if Indy does not believe in this, then, he's not going to see the urgency to put himself at risk to go and try to steal this out from underneath the Nazis, other than to just get it before they do so he can put it in a museum. I think he wholeheartedly believes in God and the power of God and what this represents. So I think that's super important. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that about the Ark and its significance in religion. So I think it's super important. And it was kind of risky for them to use something like this, but I think a lot of people just take it at face value. Like, oh, it's a holy Christian relic. It's got some kind of powers. Good enough. Let's just go with it. But it's so much more than that.
Well, I mean, even the military intelligence, the one guy is like, he kind of rebuffs what Indy says about like the staff of Ra and the Ark itself, and then the other guy is like, oh, well, then we're at the right spot. We know who's we're talking to the right person about this. The one guy is like all into this. He's like, okay, he knows what's going on. So yeah, I think that's a good way to convey that, at least one guy's like, okay, this is kind of hocus pocus, and the other guy's like, no, this is serious. This is a serious matter. Even if you don't believe in it, we need to have someone go out there and
I think it also adds, like Rick was saying, a lot of buy-in to the viewers. They're like, I know this. Like you guys are saying, I've heard of these items here, and I've heard of Moses and that. I'm like, wow, this is like this is really catching my attention, because I did go to Sunday school, right? And probably in that time period of 1981, I'm inclined to believe there were more Catholics that going to Sunday school that could even relate more to this movie. I think probably that number has phased off quite a bit, but I think going back to that time period, there probably were a lot more people like, yeah, wow, really, really bought into that movie at that point.
Well, even, I'm going to poke fun at Spielberg for a little bit, because I mean, Spielberg, he's Jewish. And so he puts a lot of, I would say in some of his films, he tends to put a lot of Judeo-Christianity into it. And so, yeah, I can definitely see that from his angle. He's like, yeah, we should use this. And I think that's what makes this movie and The Last Crusade such a great couple of films, is because they kind of, I don't say, ground it in reality, but they kind of ground it in religion. They ground it in a historical as well as biblical setting. So you get the feeling that, this all ties together. And I think that's really what helps drive the movie, makes it so popular. So,
It
So yeah,
makes me wonder if Temple of Doom did better in the Asian markets because of what you just said,
right. So if we
Because the mythology from Temple of Doom was like the Hindu mythology with Shiva and stuff like that.
right,
I never really thought of it like that, but yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Because in the third one, we go back to the Holy Grail, so we're back to Christianity again, which is also funny because some people consider the Ark and the Grail to be the same thing. So there is that argument
Right.
too, which means he made the same movie twice. But so when we get ready to do that, we just re-roll this and we're all good to go, right?
Well, I don't know because I have a comment at the end of the episode to counterpoint that. And I think the last thing I want to mention before we move a little further on. So Andy's explaining the whole concept behind the Ark of the Covenant and everything, and then he winds up convincing them that he should go and find this. And I just thought it was neat that Marcus Brody shows up later on that night. And, like Tim had said, he was sitting there with, in like a lounging smoking jacket or whatever. And, Marcus reveals, okay, you're going to go after it. So, Indy's like, okay, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm a real cautious fellow. He takes out the gun, he unrolls it from whatever, and he just like nonchalantly tosses it into his baggage. I'm like, that doesn't signify somebody who's cautious by just throwing a gun into a bag. Now, I want to ask our weapons expert, is that a wise idea, Tim?
If it's a revolver, absolutely. Unless you got the hammer back on it, you're probably 100% safe. I don't see that being a problem at all. They are known to be one of the safer guns that you can carry. Now, if it's a semi-auto, yeah, you might be, it's got one in the chamber. You might be throwing a little bit more caution to the wind there than you should be. But yeah, I don't think that was an issue. It's not good gun etiquette, but it's not exactly unsafe to do either.
Gotcha. So then, as he leaves, we get the now I want to say the running trope to Indiana Jones films, in which we see him getting on a plane, and then the plane shot kind of fades out, and you get to see the map of the world as he goes across, and you get the little dots and the line and everything. And I'm thinking that was really cool. That gives you that feeling of an adventure, and that actually goes back to some early 30s movies like Casablanca, where right off the bat you see stuff like that. And I just thought, yeah, that kind of like keys into something. What are your thoughts on that whole map sequence,
I never really
Bobby?
thought of it like that, and that makes an excellent point of tying it into really the era of when this movie is supposed to be. But without really thinking about that, I'm like, wow, they're really going far. Like, yeah, they're like, this is definitely going to be an adventure here. But when they put that together, they really had a lot of thought behind it, as you brought up.
So, we leave LA, we go to Hawaii, we go to Indonesia, and then we wind up in Nepal. And we show up in Nepal and we're introduced to our female character. And I think it was Rick who had mentioned something about the female character prior to this. So, Rick, you want to elaborate a little more on that?
So when the scene starts, they're having this drinking contest. And I love how this is like a really exciting scene, You know what? Actually, there's two things going on, but it's a exciting scene. It's this foreshadowing of something that's going to happen later on. And it's establishing that not only is Marion a bartender, but she can hold her liquor. Like, she could drink the shit. You know what I'm saying? What's more is that I didn't realize it till I was watching this time. There's actually a handful of movies that came out in the 80s that feature Nepal. Look, Nepal is like just like nowhere, all right? It is like in the middle of nowhere on the entire world map, Yet there's two really cool movies that feature Nepal in the 80s.
Yeah,
Does anyone
Golden Child,
I
man, the
usually don't do
Golden
this.
Child.
Yeah,
Yeah.
baby. Yeah.
He's like,
yeah.
I want the knife, please.
Yeah.
Let Tim ask again.
Yes.
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 The Golden Child.
The Golden Child, man. So I don't know. I thought this was a super exciting scene. It's a great way to introduce another character, and it doubles as a way to establish a skill that this character has that is going to be useful down the road.
Alcoholism.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? My superpower is I can fly. What's your superpower? Alcoholism.
You know, I gotta hand it to you, Rick. You did kind of hit a lot about the scene, but I think I also like the fact that it also allows for exposition. You know, you get to feeling of history between these two characters and then the Abner character that we don't see in this film. You know, we learn that, you know, Marion is Abner's daughter. She and Indy have a history. Obviously, she was younger than him, and that she kind of fell in love with him, much like the students in his school.
All right, bro. If we go, I didn't know you wanted to go down that road because I got something for that road, bro. So this is a classic Alpha Widow scene right here. This is like textbook Alpha Widow. For those of you who don't know what Alpha Widow means,
Please elaborate.
What that means is that Marion, when she was younger, she fell in like legitimate love with Indiana Jones. And Indiana Jones was her first legitimate love. The problem is that Indiana Jones, when he was in this relationship, she was like, you know, a kind of like
Teenager.
not necessarily. We don't know if it's because he's calling professor, so that lead me to believe that this is a college that we've already established. So she very well could have been 20, 21, either way, adult. So basically for him though, it was kind of like just something fun to do, kind of like, you know what I mean, and didn't necessarily take her that serious. So because it didn't work out the way that she wanted to, she kind of like was like, dang, this was the person who I really wanted to be with, this, you know, Chad, this Alpha, and now she kind of look at the world a little bit different, and that's why she kind of has the whole masculine thing to her to compensate for not getting with that Alpha that she really wanted to. And notice she's also not with anyone when we get into this film. Now, maybe she did have a relationship in between, but it seems as though that did not happen. We don't get any inkling like that happen. And the other
I mean, you
part,
don't get the impression that her drinking buddy across the table from her is, you know, somebody that she's been hanging out with on a romantic level.
and what's more is that it was a hard to get type of thing. He was like, yo, I'm just here for this thing, for this medallion. Do you got it? Do you don't got it? And like, she knew she had it, but she's like, look, you got to come back tomorrow. You're going to have to work for this, buddy. You know, I mean, it wasn't a I'm pissed at you still and no, F off. It was a I actually still like you and I want you to prove to me that you still like me. And that's what was going on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree
Gotcha.
with that as
See,
well. Where he just wanted to come in, get the medallion there, and leave. And that come back tomorrow, and you could see she's giddy, she's excited, you know, she's thinking about him. And then at the very end, even when it kind of goes south, she's like, "Now I'm your partner." It's like that's what she wanted the whole time.
See, I'm still gonna stand by. I think she was significantly younger. If you go back and listen to that scene in their conversations, it's very cleverly worded as to not really indicate how old she was when they were having the relationship. And I'm pretty sure it's like the song, you know, I'm only 17. Daddy says I'm too young, but she's old enough for me kind of thing. I think that's kind of how that went because they're really careful. And I think that was the idea, was that she was a bit younger to Indy's senior, not like he was a super old man, but I think he was well established into probably his, you know, mid 20s, and she was in her, you know, late teens, and almost, you know, definitely inappropriate. But again, we're back in the 30s, so things are a little different, you know, it's a different time. But, you know, she's like, look, I was just a kid. And if you're in your 20s, you ain't going to say I was just a kid at that point. You know, I mean, you're just not. I don't think so in the 30s. Because again, you know, these are people who are getting married like at 18. So you're not crying that you were only a kid at 20, because at 20, you're starting to get into that I should already be married and popping out children stage in the 30s.
Nah, man, I don't know. If you go online, you'll hear that shit all the time, man. People, especially women in their 30s, will infantilize their own self for poor decisions that they made when they were 18, 19, 20. Like, I was just too young. I didn't know. I was too stupid. And it's just a way to basically victim blame themselves. You know, like, I was a victim to circumstances. I'm not accountable to circumstances. Bob, there's a scene. Where did that scene come from with what's his name? The guy who was in The Shining.
Jack Nicholson,
Something about,
maybe.
yeah, it was something
I
like
don't know.
the kryptonite,
Yeah. It
accountability,
was.
kryptonite or something.
Gosh,
You talk about As Good as It Gets? I take away
I think it
reasoning and
is.
accountability. And I have a
Yeah,
female
She
yeah,
says,
character.
yeah,
"How
yeah,
do you
yeah,
write
yeah,
women
yeah.
so well?" And he's like, "Because I take away reason
No.
and accountability." Yeah, that's what it is. And she's just like
Yeah.
dumbfounded. What?
Yeah. All right. So all our female listeners, if you want to complain about Rick and Bobby,
I'm
feel
just
free to
quoting the
email us
line.
at
That's it. Like, it was a funny
mamreviewpodcast@gmail.com.
scene. It was a
Part
funny
of this
scene.
shit.
I didn't
That
write the
was
movie.
Rick.
Yeah.
By all means, send out
So
the thing. I'd love to debate you guys about whether or not Marion was infantilizing herself or not.
I'm gonna lean with Tim though. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Tim. I'm gonna say that maybe she was like 17. You know, she's a freshman in college, and then they even the military intelligence had said that Abner and Indy were kind of like friends. Abner was his lead professor, so I'm thinking Indy was probably like a teacher's assistant or something. So he would have been like in his mid to early 20s would be my guess. But after they had their whole entanglement and their discussion, Indy gives her $3,000 in 1930s money, which, what does that equate to today? I didn't look it up, but I'm guessing probably closer to like.
Wasn't.
Okay.
I looked it
there
up.
you go.
94,000 by today's
Okay.
money.
Yeah. So
I was
it's
like, I wonder how much money that would be today.
Yeah, that's pretty thick. That's a nice car.
Serious cheddar.
And so he promises to give her another 2,000, and then he leaves. I'm just curious as how far did he go? Because I mean, later on we see that it's snowy, it's windy. We're in Nepal, so we're in the Himalayas, and then the Nazis show up, and we're introduced to this character and this actor. I swear, if he wasn't the son of Peter Lorre, he certainly was a Peter Lorre clone. And I think for a skeezy bad guy, he played it to a T. I mean, he looked kind of scary, and I just thought that this was a great cast for this SS officer. Tim, what did you think of this character?
You could have cast anybody better. He's the quintessential Nazi, man. He's especially one that's working, basically in Hitler's supernatural division. I mean, because that's a real thing. I mean, Hitler was way into the supernatural. I mean, he was into the sciences and everything. It's anything he could figure out a way to advance Germany and his military ambitions. He was going to seek it out, whether it was technology, whether it was going to be supernatural weapons like the Ark or whatever. So, you need slimy little villainous guys. I mean, I think he's probably fashioned a little after Goebbels. He's kind of got that same look about him and things like that, but he's a creepy little dude. I mean, even his name, I believe it means either death or dead in German. So, they appropriately named him and everything, but yeah, he's a creepy little dude. And he's one of those guys that's kind of like, I almost see him being that kind of weird kid that got picked on in school. And now he's in a position of power with ultimate authority that nobody can question him, and he can do whatever the hell he wants. And if you make fun of him, he's just gonna, he's gonna make your life either horrible or he's gonna make you dead, one or the other. But this is a dude that enjoys the power that he has now, and he's not afraid to project it to reach his end goals, which are ultimately the Führer's end goals. So he enjoys his job for sure. So yeah, he was a great villainous character.
Yes, yeah. And I don't know if it was just his acting ability or the way that the makeup department did it, but I mean, he looks like your typical 1930s. I'd mentioned Peter Lorre. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Peter Lorre, but he was a classic 30s actor. I want to say he was in Dial M for Murder. He's like this famous actor that they always made fun of on Bugs Bunny, but I mean, he looks just like Major Arnold Toth. What did you think of this character,
I
Bobby?
agree. I think he was cast excellent, played it excellently, and to add to his demeanor, he walks into that room and he's got this kind of a growl laugh. Yeah, ha, 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 right? And it's like really like scary. It's like, holy shit, what's this like? And he's got 4 guys behind him, and he's like, where is it? He wants the medallion, and he's not playing games either, right? So that character, as he plays it, he's like, I asked you once, and not in these words, and no, because he's mentioned like, no, that time has passed now. Right now, he's like got this poker hot into the fire. Like, no, now we're gonna do it my way. And when he says that, it's in that soft, mean kind of now we're gonna do it my way. It's like, oh shit! Like this is like, he and throughout the movie when he comes back, as we'll see later, we'll talk about it. When we see him again, it's like once again, shit is when step coming back. Where Marion's taken aback from this character. Like he really nails it. He really does.
He does. Well, what about you, Rick? Any thoughts on our Major Arnold Toth?
He's the Salus Crumb of the Indiana Jones world.
There you go. And thankfully, like I said, I don't think Indy went too far when he left the bar, because he's back and we hear that
Right.
whip crack, and just from the sound we know that the hero has arrived. And John Williams kicks the score up a little bit, and we get the whole fight sequence. I have this feeling that anywhere where Indiana Jones goes, he just leaves a trail of broken bars, broken hearts, destroyed landscape.
You know what he does do though, Matt?
What's
he
that?
He never kills the villains though.
No, he doesn't.
Always the top villain. He never kills those guys. They always die of their own ambition, whether it's from whatever they're trying to steal or they come afoul of somebody or somebody. It's never Indy.
Right. But did you guys happen to notice something about the giant Sherpa that Indy's fighting him?
That's the same guy that's the mechanic, right?
Yes. I mean, so a little bit of casting. So they decided that I believe the gentleman's name is Pat Roach. He plays the giant Sherpa in Brownface. And then later we see him in his natural look playing the mechanic as he fights Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones fights this guy twice in a movie. And I just thought it was kind of funny.
You talking about deals with him in all 3 movies, because he's also in Temple of Doom and the third one.
Yeah.
You talking about like the big dude that he fights near the plane? That guy?
Yes.
That dude, I think we established this when we did our review of Mad Max with the Australians. That was the same dude who played as Mad Max's boss, right? He was walking around with a scarf without a shirt on or something like that. Wasn't it something like that, Tim?
I don't think that's actually him, but yeah, it looks just like him. But yeah,
it's not.
But it looks just like him, yeah. Except he's not, with the flamboyant scarf.
And by the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, do yourself a favor, go see Mad Max review that we did on Middle Age Movie Reviews podcast. It was so fun. We partnered up with Born to Watch down in Australia, and it was just so fun. Do yourself a favor, go check it out.
Nice. Thanks for that plug for Born to Watch, guys. So yeah. So now Indy ends up saving Marion's life, and Marion recovers the artifact, the headpiece for the Staff of Ra, and she establishes that she's now Indy's partner, and they take off from Nepal, and we get a shot of the map again as they go across, and we see them going to different parts of like hitting like Bangkok and then India, and eventually going across the Palestine and landing in Cairo, Egypt. And then that's where we meet them again as they are hanging out with Indy's good friend and former dwarf and great digger Sala. I think it's funny that here's John Rhys Davies, known as the greatest digger in all of Cairo, and yet what are dwarves known for doing?
Digging.
Yes, that's right. But yeah, I love this actor. I love the Sala character. He plays it kind of loose, not real serious. He's got some comedic chops in there, and I think I really like this character. What do you think of him, Rick?
It was great, man. Sala's like the GOAT, you know what I'm saying? Out of all of Indy's, quote unquote sidekicks, I think Salah's the coolest. Short Round was pretty cool. Definitely like good for the younger audience and stuff like that. But as far as like solid sidekicks, definitely Salah for sure. Salah's the man.
Gotcha. How about you, Bobby?
Yeah,
What are your
he's
thoughts on
definitely my
Salah?
favorite. Definitely my favorite. And he's got connections and he's like, let's see, solid with loyalty, right? He is like going to be loyal to Indiana, and we see that through the movie. Yeah.
Well, heck, even in the franchise, he shows up later in the Last Crusade, and I think it's just great that continues to roll with his character, to show loyalty. I mean, anytime that Indy's in Egypt, he goes checks out his friend Salah, which I think is fantastic. How about you, Tim? Any thoughts on Salah?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a great character. I mean, it's rare for me to actually see a kind of a secondary character like that I'm almost like, I wish there was more of him in these films. I just really enjoy his presence. And I don't know, maybe this is good. Maybe leaving you wanting more is the perfect mix. Maybe if he was added more, it might lose some of its magic. But I think John Rhys-Davies he does such a great job. I love him in everything. I mean, I loved him in The Lord of the Rings. I was a big fan of him. He was the only reason I watched Sliders. I loved him in Sliders. And he's in one of my favorite cartoons. You know what cartoon? I mean, I guess he's done a lot of voiceovers, but he is Man Ray in SpongeBob SquarePants. He is the bad guy for their not Aquaman. What is the superhero's name in that?
Yeah,
Mermaid Man. He's Mermaid Man's villain. Yeah. Yeah. And Barnacle Boy. That's their arch enemy is Man Ray. And he does the voice for that too. He's just great. He's just such a good actor. He's so charismatic. You just can't help but like the guy. He's like that uncle you just wish you had. I could just talk to that guy for hours, I think.
Well, we mentioned Salah. There's actually another character that shows up in that sequence too, and that's the little monkey. We get to see this. We establish this little monkey character that kind of shows up in the movie and makes friends with Marion right away. And we find out that this monkey, he means some monkey business. He's gonna be like spying on them. And I just thought it was funny that you can kind of see a little bit of George Lucas's appeal towards kids with the monkey character, because you kind of get that same feeling that you would get from, say, like an Ewok or a Gungan, with them trying to anthropomorphize this poor little monkey in this movie. I just thought it was an interesting trope that you can kind of see from George Lucas. But the monkey, aside from it, he's kind of, I don't know, kind of humorous. He's also got that what's the word I'm looking for?
Bastard. He's a bastard.
Yes, that's it. Because you get to see that he's working for the bad guy. He's
apparently, I thought that this monkey was the same monkey from Pirates, and apparently it's not. That's like a different monkey. It's that was like a chimpanzee or I don't know what. No, not a chimpanzee. It was some other type of monkey. But this one is Crystal the monkey, and he was in 2 other notable movies. Eddie,
what
were those?
All right, so he was in Night at the Museum, The Hangover Part 2. Those are the ones that he was in. But yeah, the other monkey, I can't remember his name, that was in Pirates of the Caribbean. But yeah, that one is also super famous, though. That one's in a bunch of movies as well. I was shocked, though, because this is 81. Hangover Part 2, that's like 2000s or something, you know what I mean? So this monkey kind of old.
Well, they age. They can,
I didn't realize that,
they're well
It got
taken
smarter
care of.
over time and was able to get more time on the tape, like more screen time.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this for scale.
Right.
Call my agent.
I thought Lucas did a great job with that. I mean, that was, like a lot of the really cool shots we get, Lucas actually decided to do a little of the second camera work on that. So those were pickup shots that he did. And he's actually the one that had the idea of getting him to do the Nazi salute. And I guess they really had to work at it. They finally got him to do it. And you're just like, wow, that's one evil monkey. Look at that.
Yeah.
He's got the Nazi salute going and everything. And I remember when he finally dies, I'm like, oh, that's so sad that monkey dies. And my wife looks at me, she's like, why that? He's a bastard. Like, he deserved to die. He's evil. I was like,
that's an evil
It's
monkey.
like karma.
I guess my, yeah, for sure. I was like, I guess my sadness is wrongly placed here.
Well, yeah, and the monkey does give away Marion's location when they're out and about, and they're getting chased down by the Nazis and the locals. And we kind of get this really cool sequence with Indy as well, fighting these guys and trying to save Marion. And poor Indy, he's sweating. He doesn't have his leather coat on, so he's not cool that way. But he's like sweating and he looks tired, and he's been fighting all these people. And suddenly he shows up, and there's this big, tall dude with a giant sword. Poor Indy, he just looks tired. Like, you'd almost think that maybe the actor was sick or something. And instead of fighting the guy, he just kind of thinks smart and pulls his gun out and shoots him. So did you guys know the background to that whole scene?
I actually do.
Okay.
You want me to tell it?
I think I kind of teed it up for you.
Yeah,
but
you did.
the floor's all yours, Tim.
So you're right. So the whole crew, except for Spielberg, at this point in filming, has food poisoning. They are sicker than dogs. They got a hold of some bad food or whatever. And Indy's supposed to do this long, drawn-out fight with them, use the whip or disarm him with the sword, the whole thing. He tries, and you can see the sweat. Like, that's real sweat. The dude's he's just puking, sweating profusely and stuff. He's like, nah. He just walks up there, roll the camera, pulls the gun out, just shoots him dead. That's it. It just walks away. They're like, yeah, that'll do. We'll go with that. So yeah, that's not him acting. That's just him like, I got it in me, man. So I'm shooting this guy and I'm walking away, go back to my trailer.
Which, they kind of do a wink and a nudge in the sequel or the prequel when Indy has to go fight the guy on the bridge and he goes to grab his gun and his gun's not in his holster.
Yep.
That's because Spielberg goes, I want to get that fight out of you.
And that was pretty good. I did enjoy that.
So, but yeah, so with the whole sequence of, Marion being captured and, Indy has to try to track her down. He's tipping over baskets and he's running through all these back alleys. I thought this was a really cool action sequence. It kind of conveyed the movement of the story. We see the heroism of Indy. And you get kind of like this feeling of, will he save the maid, the woman in distress? What did you think about this whole sequence, Bobby?
When he's running through and trying to find it, and he's like looking for this basket, and then he sees like I don't know, 20 baskets or something. Everybody seems to have a basket at that point in time, and he's like, which one is it? Trying to knock him down, and he can't find her. He continues running, and then because she's in a truck, right? We see her get loaded up into a truck, and now he's trying to find this truck, and then he sees a truck crash, and it's like the craziest thing. It's loaded with all this like dynamite and explosives and shit. Then the truck crashes, and then poof, and he's just like, oh, he's like hurt. You can see he's like hurt inside. Like he started to have some feelings for her, and now he's like, oh, so now he's hurt. And then what do men do when they get sad? They turn to booze, right? So now he's boozing it up, and who does he find? Bullock again. That's not another interesting scene there. I'll stop there, but yeah, that's pretty funny, pretty good.
Yeah, it is interesting. Again, it's like that the whole foreshadowing we've seen earlier with Indy, how he thinks he succeeds in something and then something bad happens. And I just think that this was a really neat, quote shell game with the baskets, and you see this horrible ending to the character of Marion, or what we think.
The best part with the baskets, though, is that it's like a bad Scooby-Doo episode where they're like running through those alleys and, they're way down there and he goes down there and now they're up here and stuff. Yeah. It's like, what is this? I'm watching Scooby-Doo? What's going on here?
But I have to hand it to Harrison Ford for the extra selling of this moment when the truck blows up. I don't know if you guys caught that he does that like halfway one-step run. Like he's gonna go and he's gonna run over and save her, but like it's like blown up and on fire. So he does that like it's like he's running, but he only gets one step out of the run before he comes to his senses. Like, yeah, there's nothing I can do here. So I have to hand it to him. That was a cool like way to sell this, this emotion that Indiana Jones is feeling, the character. So I thought that was
it's a subtle scene of range for Harrison Ford. But yeah, and as Bobby said, he's mourning the death of Marion, and he's at the bar and he's drinking, and he runs into, he is summoned by Renee Bullock, and we see this neat little debate, because he's down on his luck. I mean, he's ready to cash in his chips. He's like, "You ready to go see God together?" kind of thing, and that's when like the entire room just kind of turns all their guns on him, and I'm like, wow, that's something that you see a lot in a lot of different movies. I thought that was a pretty cool trope.
I'll also, like, whenever that happens in like just about any movie, you hear the guns click when it's like all they did was whip the guns out. They didn't like, pull the clips and put them in and lock and load and stuff, but you always hear that sound. But that sound never is made when you whip a gun out. That's just not how it works.
I want to add something here.
Right.
In that setting, in that scene where he's, sitting at the table, he's now talking with Bullock. But in these times when he sees Bullock is very excited to see Dr. Right? He's very cheery. He's happy. He's like, "Oh, Dr. Jones, have a seat." And like when he's Sealing the Idol, he's like, "Dr. Jones." Oh, so he's very happy. And we see as we watch the movie, it changes where he's not so happy anymore as these events come. But that's one where he's still happy. Bullock is still excited to have this talk because I'm going to take something from you. I'm going to use you to my benefit in some way. We'll talk more. We'll see. It does change.
Well, I think there's a reason behind that, because if you really think about it, Indy says at one time they were friends. And the reason that they stopped being friends is because Bullock took credit for something that Indy wrote. Bullock's whole career is based on not doing actual archaeology work himself, but following Indy around and figuring out what he's up to, then waiting for him to do all the work, and then stealing it from him at the last moment. So he's always happy to see Indy because it means a payday's about to happen. Every time. Every time.
So you're saying that Bullock is upper management?
Yeah, I think so. He's always after those TPS reports or whatever. Yeah.
Hey, I gotta put it out there. I know you guys like to call him Belloc. Me personally, I like to pronounce it Belosh. But you guys do what you guys want to do. Belosh.
I'm sorry, I can't keep up with your pinky out ways, sir. Your fancy pronunciations.
Over in Egypt, we pronounce it Belosh.
Belosh. Belloc.
We're dumb Americans. We can get away with mispronouncing French names.
Yeah. And speaking of the French and someone coming in to save them, the children of Sala come in and they save Indy, and I'm like, that's pretty slick because nobody in their right mind is going to shoot at children.
But why are all these guys laughing? Like all those kids come in and the guys are like, they're all laughing at. I'm like, that's a really weird response for somebody they were about to shoot 2 seconds ago.
Right. I think it has to do with that they're making fun of his masculinity because he couldn't take these guys out himself. He had to have children come in and save them.
Okay, I can get on board with that theory.
Yeah, I even thought it was funny. I thought it was a really good scene. I liked it, and I especially liked the way that Sala framed it better than the U.S. Marines.
Yeah,
that was great.
So of course Sala. It's gives his condolences to Indy. He's like, "Yes, I heard about Marion," and then that's when he tells him, "Well, I have a guy that's looking at your headpiece. Let's go talk to them." And that's when Indy kind of like, I don't know, his whole demeanor kind of turns around more because that's when we learn that the headstone has a secret that not only do you have a specific height of the staff, but you actually have to take a little bit off of the staff. So that's when we learn that the Nazis who have a copy of the headpiece, but not the full copy, are actually digging in the wrong spies. And then we get another great line that I love from Sala because, the one-eyed monkey owner decides to poison the dates. And the poor monkey, he's snacking on those dates and he dies, but not before Indy's able to throw one up in the air and Sala catches it mid throw and goes, "Bad dates."
For sure.
You guys ever eat dates? Yeah.
Yeah, I've had them before.
Yeah. I started eating dates a couple years ago, and I have some that are like pitted. The ones with the seeds in are way better, but they're quite the treat. I didn't know that. And in this era, this time period of, let's say, Cairo, where they're at, that is the very popular treat. It's like good for the movie. They're like, yeah, we're gonna have what we would normally have,
Some
local.
local
Yeah,
cuisine.
thank you, local cuisine. Yeah.
I like that they sell it too, which he's like, well, what is that? He's like, a date. You should eat it. They're really good, because it's such an exotic foreign food that Marion's never seen them before. So that shows that the world market hasn't brought these things to all the shores yet.
Yeah. Now, speaking of dates and speaking of actors that are like young, did you guys happen to know who the house servant to the Aman was that had prepped the dates before they were poisoned?
No.
You know
He's a
what?
short-
He did look super familiar. Is that the dude who played as like the Oompa Loompa or something like that?
Yes.
Bro, that's crazy.
You might also recognize him from The Never-Ending Story as the snail
Mhm.
driver.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe the actor's name is Deepak Chopra. But yeah, it's very young here. I think he's like maybe 12 or 13 years old. But yeah, it was kind of neat to see him because, he has that actor that has a prolific career in, small bit parts. It's basically in every movie from now until last week.
I would like to say, before we get too far away from this part, this section where you have Salah's friend looking at the, basically the staff topper of Ra there. There's a scene that they cut out that I really wish they'd have left in. And this is the part where, so on one side of that, as we just discussed, it tells the measurements of the staff. On the flip side of that thing, it says, do not look or touch. And he warns Indy, like, do not open it and look inside, and do not touch it because it will kill you. And I think that's so important because we never really understand how Indy knows this unless he reads the back of that. And I think the other important part is that you guys brought up is that they have a copy of it, but do you remember how they get their copy?
It's
Yeah.
because it was burned on the guy's hand.
Yeah. So that's why they only have the one side and they don't know about not looking at everything because they don't have the reverse side to read. So I thought that was really interesting. And I felt like they should have fleshed that out a little bit more. The copy in the hand, you can pretty much deduce because you see when he does the Heil Hitler, he's got it in his hand. So if you're thinking about it, that part comes true, becomes self-evident. But I feel like the other part where Indy knows that he's not supposed to look at it is never really explained, and this is where it was done, and they completely cut it out for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. The only thing I ever attributed his knowledge of that was when they pointed it out in that scene where they had the army intelligence kind of laying it down, and he's like, yeah, this is the Ark, and he pulls out this, like, I don't know if it was a Bible or something that had pictures or whatever, and it showed the Ark being open or something, and lightning or fire and brimstone, he describes it as, is killing everyone. I only assumed that it was something like that he kind of like guessed that you shouldn't look at it, but it definitely would make more sense to have just like, I mean, what would it have taken? Maybe 30 seconds to include that? That would just been so much more like fulfilling to know where that came from,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some things I think we just decide to let it go in this film because it's so fun and you don't want to think about it too deep. But when you start to really watch it and think about some of the stuff, you're like, well, that seems like a little bit of a plot hole there. Not major, not enough to kill the movie, but enough that it still seems important. And to know that there was a scene where that was in there and they pulled it out, now it makes no sense. Like, why would you do that? Even for pacing, again, like you said, Rick, what is that? Like 30 seconds or less worth of, film that you could have left in?
2 lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
As I like to say in Big Bang, it changes the whole dynamic of the film, that 30 seconds.
What about you, Bobby? Any points of conjecture on plot holes in this movie?
Well, thinking of others, not yet. But what Tim was saying, I didn't know that. I didn't know about that, and I think that would have been pretty important would have tied it together a little bit better, right? Because Marion's not there. She wouldn't know to do that, so he's like, don't look. And then, yes, to what Rick said with the book, like, they're all kneeling. Let's say the people who are kind of looking at that but aren't looking, they're all kneeling and bowing before, the covenant, right? So is that what it
You
was?
mean the Jews?
Yeah,
The Jews
they're
are
all
kneeling and bowing?
kneeling.
the Jews,
But
yeah.
as far as this scene, I didn't have anything to pull away.
Well, and of course, we learn about the height of the staff. We learn that, the Nazis are digging in the wrong spot. So then now Indy has to go to the map room and discover the true location of the location of the Well of Souls. And I just thought it was neat that, he shows up there and he's, disguised as your typical sand person. He walks up to the window of the map room and he takes the staff and he just kind of like nonchalantly like kind of throws it in there. And to me, watching that, it felt very much like, Eric Idle or somebody from Monty Python, like doing like a little like side gag of, oh, I'm just going to throw this in here and no one's going to see me. And then they just kind of like nonchalantly throw the rope down and, he hops down into the map room with the rope. And I just thought, yeah, this is kind of funny in the fact that they're doing it all like on the down low and expecting like no one to see them. So I thought it was kind of clever. What did you guys think of the whole map room and the reveal of where to place the staff and how cool that little effect was of the light coming through the headpiece? You got
Yeah,
any
so
thoughts
I
on
thought
that,
it was
Bobby?
really cool. What I didn't understand is he's sweeping away the dirt to kind of find like where to put this staff because there's a bunch of holes lined up. And he mentioned earlier, like based on the date where you would put it, but didn't really say how he determined that. Right? If there was something that he was able to read to say it's got to go in this spot, because we know it wasn't in the right spot with Balash who did it, but something got him to do that, and at the right time, yeah, we see this laser pointing in. It was like, wow, there it is. Like, yeah, and I think they did good, but I would have liked to see how did we come up with that.
Gotcha.
I want to say that I think was when he's looking at it, because he kind of starts looking at the hieroglyphs on there. And again, this is just me kind of guessing at this because I don't know for sure. But he takes that one section and he wipes that whole line away and he looks at it. And I'm pretty sure whatever those glyphs say is what tells him where to put it, because then immediately after that, that's when he places the staff. So I'm thinking that whatever that line was there, that was the key to it. But maybe if he either had some, inner dialogue, like a little voiceover, or if he had just mumbled while he was doing it, it might have helped a little bit with that.
So I actually took the clip and I plugged it in to Google Translate with the AI for the hieroglyphics, and it said, go to this hole right here, and there was like a arrow and stuff. Nah, for real though, it was the sound, yo. It was definitely the score that really brought this whole scene together. At those certain moments when the hooey dooey stuff is going on, you got the supernatural things happening, and you have that music. It's that very iconic Indiana Jones, not the theme, but I wish I knew exactly what part the score that this was titled, but that section plays every single time in this movie when something like that's going on, and it really piques interest, and it tells you that something serious is happening to the plot, and it has to deal with the Ark of the Covenant. So that's,
agree.
for me, was the thing.
It's the light and the sound together that sells that.
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
Otherwise,
Good,
it would seem kind of boring if it was just like, he puts that staff in there, it's like a little light coming through a magnifying glass, like, oh, that's just like when I burn ants, it's just, but it's like, whoa, it gets very angelic, things like that, and it's got that light coming through, and it doesn't just come through like a little bit of light, it's coming through like it's a freaking laser, So
it was a laser,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, it totally sells that scene completely.
Well, and again, with the sound effects too, not only the score, but you also have the sound effect that's almost like an 80s laser beam sound of the beep.
Laser beams.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would say I think Spielberg and Lucas teaming up together kind of really defines, the genius of the filmmaking of this. Because you have Lucas's creativity and you have Spielberg's knowledge of filmmaking and storytelling that I think just kind of like combines real well, and it's really seen in just how they use the sound and the music and the story and everything to tell this sequence and to tell this whole story, and I think it's just fantastic.
would say it's a Triumvirate. You know what I'm saying? You got the two of them with John Williams. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
John
they
Williams.
knock it out of the park with Jedi. Yeah, with Return of the Jedi too, you know.
Anything John Williams does, he knocks out of the park. I mean, that guy is basically the Spielberg of orchestra. I mean, that's what he is. I defy you to find me one film that he scored that wasn't awesome. I mean, the story might be bad, but the score was awesome.
Speaking of Jedi, look, I get it. When you're watching this, it might not yet be out, but Return of the Jedi will be out in a few months if you're watching it as soon as this posts, because Return of the Jedi should post 2026 in May. Is that right, Matt? May, June?
Yes.
So there you go. If you're watching it 2026, May or June, don't forget Return of the Jedi.
Well, at least he got it right this time.
Yes.
Now we'll
All
see if we
right.
can remember that when we actually try to do the movie.
Yeah. So after we get the location of the Well of Souls, and he jots everything down in his diary, he manages to get back out of the map room. But I noticed that just before the hand, he like snaps the staff in half and like chucks it to the side. At that point, why even bother? I mean, you've discovered where it was at. Is he really afraid that someone else is going to come in there with the staff and find it? I mean, they don't have the exact heads piece. You still have it. You just broke the stick in half. That's what I don't get.
Yeah, because you can't take that thing back together and make it, the appropriate height again. It's like snap a little bit off the top, take it with you. They keep them guessing. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't matter if they don't have the original headpiece because it's going to work either way. It's just the height that matters. But again, I agree with you. It's kind of weird that he just left it there.
You know what you just said? I never thought about it. What did they take that other dude's hand and put it up where that top of the staff was, and then be like, all right, hold your hand
Spread
right.
your fingers a little bit. Spread the
Steady.
fingers. Get the light through.
Now this is going to hurt for a second.
Jeez.
Bring your Bayonetta over here, Hans.
But when he gets out of the map room, he's kind of like sneaking around trying to get out of there, and he walks into a tent. He sees that Marion is alive and that she's being held prisoner by Belloc because, again, Belloc takes things from Indiana Jones. From now until they're reunited, we get to see two storylines happening. We get to see the interaction between Belloc and Marion, and then Indy digging for Tanis. But before we get to that portion, Indy sees her and he's immediately ready to like rescue her and save her and get her out of there. And as he's, undoing things, he's like, wait, no, if I take you out of here, they're going to know that I know you were here. They're going to know that I'm here to find the Ark. I got to leave you here so I can find the Ark. And I just thought it was interesting that, he kind of gets that almost heroic moment, but then he's like, oh, wait, no, I have a bigger mission to achieve here. And I just thought the look on Marion's face is like, what you mean you're leaving me with the bad guys? I just thought it was very much a cool relationship situation between these two characters.
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
Yeah, that was a good moment there where he, as much as a ladies' man he wants that Ark and he's got to get it in a museum, right? And he's like, nope, you are not the priority. And I'm sorry, I'll come back for you. I'll come back for you. And she's screaming, I got to tighten this back up here, cover your mouth up. And she's, yeah, she was hot about it, pissed off. I thought that was good. But it also shows that he's like, wait a minute, like you said, if he takes her, he gives it away, and he can't do that. And it was clever. It was a good storyline there.
Yeah. What about you, Rick? Any thoughts on poor Marion being stuck with the Nazis?
No, but I have to hand it to you. I like how you are framing that Belloc is taking everything, and that includes Marion. I think that's a really good way to look at this, and I hadn't looked at it before like that.
Nice. Tim, any thoughts on poor Marion's fate?
All I can think of is, fast forward to this time and that happening, it's him leaving her and then her whipping her phone out going, oh my God, this is a total TikTok video. Oh my God, you won't believe what just happened. My boyfriend just came in his tent to rescue me and then left me so he could go get a wooden box. Just like, it's totally a viral video within 20 minutes.
Yeah, Indiana Jones is canceled.
Don't trust an archaeologist. That's all I'm going to say.
So Marion's left to her devices with the Nazis, and Indy and Sal's crew start to dig. And as they're digging, suddenly this like weird storm starts to form in the background of our shot, which looks an awful lot like the same effects used a few years later in a famous supernatural film about these New York exterminators that go after ghosts and they like to bust them. I don't know if you guys noticed the cloud formation that kind of rolled in, kind of looked a little bit like that same sequence above the
Are you
tower.
saying V'ger and God roll with the same storm?
Gozer.
Or Gozer,
Yes.
yeah. Gozer.
Yes,
the gatekeeper.
Gozer the Destroyer definitely rolls the same storm pattern as, the Almighty.
Yo, I'm just gonna put it out there. I don't want to offend anyone, but I gotta say it. There are people who do say that those Sumerian deities are the precursor to the Judeo-Christian deity. You know what I'm saying? Like El, for instance, was one of those Sumerian gods. So there might be potentially a link. If there was a link, it might be a link.
Yeah, I was just thinking they were using the same production studio.
Oh, I thought it would happen in real life. I thought this happened in real life, man.
But so Indy finds the Well of Souls, and they manage to open it up, and very dramatically, we see them open this thing up. And I was expecting to see you see a little bit of smoke and stuff come out of it, but I was expecting to see I don't know, light or something when I first saw it. But yeah, they just open it up, and Indy looks down there, and we hear the comment of, "Why is the floor moving?" And Sala gets another solid line that I just love hearing, and that's, of course, asps. Very dangerous. And,
You
Indy
go
says,
first.
Yeah.
You go first, Indy.
And I think this is where Tim got the line for our opening sequence this afternoon for the movie. Snakes. Why has it got to be snakes?
Why'd it have to be snakes?
So, but yeah, I think it was...
Those snakes, man. And I tell you what, there's way too many snakes up in there, man. Way too many. Nuh-uh.
Well, how about you, Bobby? What are your thoughts on snakes and the use of them in this Well of
it
Souls?
Was overwhelming. It was like, so, and I don't know if it was supposed to be another meaning behind it, because there's if we think of this, Ark as this like thing of God, or like possesses evil around it, and it's filled with this layer of snakes. It happens to be, Indiana Jones is fear. Of all the things that could be in here, it's full of snakes. And, is that another meaning coming from, let's say, this power of this Ark to protect it and keep it away, right? To I think what Salah had said, not meant to be discovered, and here it's now discovered, and another hurdle to overcome.
Gotcha. Yeah, it is interesting to see that, just the symbology of it all, because, the snake is what tempted Eve in the garden, either being used to protect the Ark, which, and then it comes down to, okay, well, God knows everybody's heart, knows everybody from day one all the way to the end of their days. So it's did he know that Indiana Jones would discover the Ark? And did he instill the fear of snakes into Indy by the choices that he put in front of him, so that eventually when Indy does go to discover the Ark, he's afraid of the snakes that are protecting the... It gets very heavy there for a second. So yeah, it is curious, the symbolism within all of this. Tim, any thoughts from you on the discovery of the Ark?
Yeah. Hell and no. There's no way I'm going down there. I'm sorry, man. When that thing opens up and he's like, "Why is the floor moving?" and they toss that first torch down there, I was like, my God, that's a lot of snakes. That's my kryptonite. I'm right there with Indy, man. I am not having nothing to do with that. And you look down there, and originally they were supposed to use mechanical snakes and stuff, but it wasn't enough. So they literally went around England and found every snake they could, every pet store. Supposedly there's 7,000 snakes down there. And some of them are legitimately poisonous. Those cobras are the real deal down there. So they have a snake wrangler and stuff. So they are legit cobras that are down there and stuff. Although, when Indy's facing it, they got a plate glass in front of him and the cobra, which I guess did spit venom at the plate glass and stuff. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, these things, they're not messing around. And there's boa constrictors and all kinds of crap down there. So it's just like, I'm sorry, but if the four of us get pushed down to that hole, I'm climbing you guys like Marion to rest on your shoulders. There's no way I'm going to ever touch that ground. It's not happening. I'm going to be screaming like a little girl all the way as I scale the top of you and try to stand on your shoulders. It's just not going to happen. I would just be like, the Nazis can freaking have it. I'm out.
Yeah. Rick, any other thoughts on the asps?
No.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think being trapped in a room full of snakes like that, and yeah, even if there was a plate glass between me and a cobra, yeah, I'm not going to be within 20 yards of that situation.
But yeah, I don't even like going through the reptile house at the zoo. Yeah. So no, there's not enough glass in the world to get me in that. Even if I knew you're going to put me and it was entirely glass all the way around, you're like, we're just going to put you down the middle. Nope, no, sir, not having it. Just no way.
So, but what's really neat is, we get two storylines happening now. So we kind of cut from Indy and Sala, grabbing the Ark, to Marion and Bullock drinking wine in his cabin or in his tent, and he's fraternizing with Marion, trying to get on her good side. He gets her a dress, and they're sitting there and having a nice social meal, and she's trying to find ways to escape. And I just think that it was a neat juxtaposition between what's going on outside to what's going on in the tent. And you think Marion might be able to get away, and just then it's revealed that, oh, look, here's our favorite SS officer. And that's when we kind of learn that, okay, he's there to get information out of Marion as well. I thought it was a really cool appeal. I thought it was cool back and forth with them. Rick, what'd you think of Marion's portrayal in the sequence?
Yo, this was really cool because she was trying to put those moves on and, take that knife and then do her thing. But she had a strategy, and that strategy was, let's have like a drinking contest. Matter of fact, the first shot, he poured it, and then she looks at him, and then she's like, bam, puts that thing down. And then he looks at his glass, and he's like, oh shit, I ain't gonna let her just outdrink me like that. And then he pounds it, and you could tell for him, it was a little bit too rough because he had that little cough afterwards. And then she started to play it off like she was, feeling the effects of alcohol. But we know better. We know that she can outdrink this big, huge, look like a burly man girl, okay, from Nepal. So she can do it. So
that's her superpower, alcoholism.
Yes, alcoholism.
The power of alcoholism to him.
Yeah. So I thought that was well clever.
But she winds up finding out that, he grew up with this stuff because he's a Frenchman. This is his family's vineyard. So evidently, she's got to kick in that superpower pretty hard.
Well, he must not be drinking much of the family stock either, because he acts like it's the first time he's ever downed a shot of it before. So I was like, I don't know, man.
But it looked like it came out of a wine bottle, but judging from how coarse that it hit him, it must have been something stronger than wine. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure
something
what
stronger,
that was.
like a mead of some kind, or yes, definitely a higher end alcohol content for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe a French vodka.
I did enjoy the scene, though, because it's actually an improvised scene between Karen Allen and Paul Freeman, because in the script, they just said, Marion will end up in a dress before she ends up in the pit of snakes. So they had to figure out how to get her into a dress. And so the two of them got talking, like, oh, well, we'll do some flirting and drinking. And that's kind of how it does, which is nice because then it harkens back to the bar scene where she's, again, drinking like a sailor on shore leave. So she's going to use that power to outdo this guy. So it was very well considered. It was not really written into the script, and they kind of improvised it on the spot to get him from point A to point B. It really fit the story nicely.
Yeah. And, it definitely feels a little bit like good cop, bad cop too, because when Marion goes to escape, that's when, we see the SS officer come in, and it gets me every time. But the whole sequence where he takes off his coat and then he pulls out that little device that you think is going to be something to inflict
Yeah.
pain, and he just puts it
Coat
together
hanger.
to make a little coat hanger. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's pretty clever.
Yeah, but everyone has that sigh. Even the characters have that sigh of relief when he
Yeah.
actually makes it into that coat hanger. Everyone's like, but it was so cool when she ran behind Balak. She had just pulled a knife on this dude.
Well, because again, she knows that this guy, this skeevy looking guy, is dangerous. You know, as we established in the bar sequence. So I thought it was a good callback, you know, to that foreshadowing. And of course, you know, that apparently some interrogations happening while Indy's trying to get the Ark out, and it takes all night for Indy to get the Ark out of the Well of Souls, for Sala to get out of the well. And of course, before Indy can come out, the rope's gone. And then that's when we see the big reveal that, oh, hey, Bullock has discovered that Indy's there. And, you know, we get to that point because he comes out of, you know, Bullock comes out of his tent and he's like just having a conversation with the one guy, and he looks over and he sees that, hey, somebody's digging where I didn't authorize. And I just thought that was kind of cool because, again, it's another leadway to, you know, whatever Indy possesses, Bullock will steal. And we kind of get a little bit of that in there.
The other thing too is it goes back to something that Salah said when they were talking about Belush or Belloc. He said there was actually, he's like, not a brain among them. And then he says, no, wait, there is one clever one. And then he mentions Belloc. So I liked how the other officers paid no mind to the workers, no mind to what's going on. Like, they're just doing their work and stuff like that. But Belloc was like, no, fuck that. There's not supposed to be any work going on right now. I didn't, yeah, you know, this is out of the ordinary. Let me critical think on this thing here. There's a problem, you know? So I thought that was cool.
Yeah. And it pays off for Bullock in spades in the fact that, you know, he now possesses the Ark, and he possesses Marion. And, you know, he's happy. But of course, you know, the Nazis have another thing coming and says, no, we're gonna toss Marion down there too. And then poor Marion and Indy have to deal with all these snakes. And again, we get another shot, as Tim had mentioned, where, you know, we have the primary actors in front of a plate glass, and there's these hooded cobras, and I thought that was pretty clever of shooting it through the plate glass. But Bobby, you know, you've been a little quiet. What do you think of the reveal that Indy's now stuck in this place, and Bullock is got
well,
the
you know what?
Ark.
I wanted to rewind. There was a scene before that I thought was kind of interesting, and it is that night before, and they have just found the Ark, and it's like the sun is kind of setting. There's a little bit of light, and it's windy, and that's when you see Indiana Jones, and he's like got his hat in his hand, and he's now going to put his hat on. And it's like this moment of like, there he is. That's Indiana Jones, because he's now found it. He's now found the Ark, and that's like I'm the man. And because
The
he
heroic
had,
shot.
you know, like this, like what is the Arab drab, where, you know, the stuff on his head, turban, yeah.
The
So
turban.
he's blending in, wearing all
Yeah.
that, and then now he's back to Indiana Jones, and we see that scene, and it's like, yeah, he's back, he's here. So I thought that was a really cool scene, you know, before the morning breaks, you know. So to your question, now they're in the Well of Souls, and then they get caught, and it's like, you know, it's like, once again, here we are with that, you know, hey, Dr. Jones, you know, like, once again, you know, thank you. I'm taking your, you know, what you found for me. And that's where he's now going to take that, and he's got the girl. But it was, I think it was Major Tolt, was it, that threw her in there, and he was like, wait a minute, the girl was mine. So he was like mad. That's when it started changing, where he's not happy with Jones anymore, because he wanted to keep her.
Right. Yeah.
Yo,
How about you, Tim?
no, go ahead.
I was just going to add on to that. I think you're kind of right, because I think he's at that point now where he's like, you know, I've been following this dude around, and you know, and he's brought me a lot of riches, but this is what's going to throw me over the top. I've got the Ark now. I've got like the for lack of a better term, the Grail of Grail, you know, the Holy Grail of artifacts. You know, it's not the Holy Grail itself. You know, so this is going to make him famous, and the Nazis are going to pay him handsomely for it. So he's going to have the fame and the fortune. So he really doesn't need Indy to follow around anymore. And he's going to steal his girl on top of cherry on top. I'm going to get the girl. I got the grail. I got the fame. I've got the fortune. I don't need you anymore. I can write my own ticket now and finally be my own man, which is really still on your coattails, but nobody will know because you're going to be eaten alive by a shit ton of snakes.
So I have to say that I don't know if you guys noticed this when Sala and Indy were inside the Well of Souls and they were trying to remove. There was this massive. It looked like granite. All right, maybe it was sandstone or something like that. But no matter what the hell kind of stone it was, did you guys notice that they like both picked that thing up and it looked like they picked it up with some measure of ease? And I'm looking at that and I'm like, I mean, that was solid rock, man. I don't know if I don't think that they really thought that through for how heavy that thing would have been for two dudes to like just lift that thing up and pull it and push it off so that they can actually gain access to the Ark. Because there was like a rock enclosure, encasement,
like a
you know
tomb.
what
Yeah.
It
I'm
was like a
saying?
tomb.
Like a sarcophagus.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
thing was huge.
I thought about that too. I was like, there's no way two guys are lifting that. I mean, no way. Maybe if it's like Stallone and Schwarzenegger, possibly. But I mean, don't get me wrong. Indy's, he's not a weakling, but he ain't exactly the strong man, as far as leading men go either.
I mean, they did grunt a little bit, but yeah, it definitely looked heavier than two.
Dude, if
Fit
I lift
man.
that thing up, all you're going to hear is, that's my
I
hernia
thought they
right there.
slid
It's just,
that off though. We seen the crowbars from the night before, but I thought they had slid it off, and you could hear it like scraping, the stone scraping, and then it was like heavy, but it was like thick
Yeah,
though.
maybe.
Yeah, it was like really thick.
Because I remember how thick that was. I'm like, dude, I'm a pretty strong guy, and I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm even moving that thing, man. I probably wouldn't even budge it, honestly.
well, I mean, think about the Ark too. When they go to move the Ark, that top is
Yeah.
solid gold.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen movies where, guys are stealing gold bars and they're grabbing them things with two hands and like, they're moving them from like a chest or whatever to steal them. And now you got two guys that are lifting an Ark that's got an entire gold top. And then it's got to be some kind of, I'm guessing it's not wood. It's got to be some kind of stone, actual box with two giant stone tablets on the inside of it. You know how heavy that thing's got to be? And it's two guys with two sticks picking it up.
It's
No.
definitely not wood. According to the schematics that I've heard and seen, it is no wood in there. There's no wood. It's gold and stone. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, but you gotta, I guess you gotta kind of like suspend your disbelief for a little bit just to
Yeah.
enjoy the film.
That's the beauty of this film. That is the luxury that it gets because it's so well written, so well acted, the music's so good, and it's so fun that you're willing to let things like this go. You're like, I don't even care. I don't give a shit that it defies logic, weight, physics, whatever. I'm just having a good time with this, and I'm going to go with it.
Mhm.
Because in a little bit, we're going to come up with the biggest plot hole I've ever seen, and everybody just lets it go. So I'll see if you guys know what it is when we get there.
Well, so Indian and Marion are stuck down in the Well of Souls, and they need to escape. And Indy's looking around for some way to escape, and he sees a snake come out of the wall, and that's when he kind of surmises, oh well, if there's some way that I can break that wall in, then we can get out of here. Which, suspend belief, whatever. He manages to climb up to the top of one of the jackals and manages to knock it over to cause the wall to cave in so that they can make their escape. And miraculously, they come out of a tunnel somewhere else on the property, and they manage to get away. And that's when we learn that they're loading the Ark up into a plane. They're going to fly it from there to Germany in a really cool precursor to the stealth bomber because it's a flying wing. And I thought that looks pretty cool. And of course, that's when Indy, he goes, well, we gotta stop him. So he goes to hijack the plane and stop it. And that's when we get the cool fight sequence with the mechanic and the airplane. I think that this is probably one of the most iconic fight sequences in any of the Indiana Jones movies. is with the mechanic and Indy. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? I'll go to you first, Tim.
I mean, yeah, it's so iconic. I mean, first, the flying wing is really cool. It's not a real plane, but there were Nazi designs for such things because that's where we got a lot of our stealth technologies by studying their stuff. But outside of that, I mean, it's just a cool scene. That whole fight scene between him and this giant brute. And the coolest thing about it is you can go to Disney and relive this in the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular. So I've gone and seen that a couple times, and it's just like watching it in the movie. And in fact, I think that mechanic guy was actually in it for quite a while. I think he was actually part of it. He would go there when he wasn't doing movies, and he was part of Stunt Spectacular. So well worth seeing. If you're ever there, you should go check that out. I don't remember if it's in Disney proper or if it's in what I like to call MGM,
Studios.
but Hollywood Studios, it was MGM back in the day. But
I think it's a Disney the same place that Star Wars is at in Disney.
Yeah, Hollywood Studios.
Yeah,
Hollywood Studios.
I was literally just there this summer.
Yeah. But it's a cool scene. It's a cool fight scene. You know, it's fun to watch Indy just kind of get the crap kicked out of him. It's always entertaining to watch that, and him just keep getting up and kind of doing the huff and the cliche Harrison Ford, kind of acting tropes that he likes to do, his little things that he likes to do as a character actor. But it's just a fun scene.
How about you, Bobby? What do you think of the fight sequence? The chance to go up against the same guy twice.
Funny when I see him, like this guy, he's like getting ready for the fight. He's like, I'm going to waste this guy. I'm taking my shirt off. But the character, if you guys remember video game Mike Tyson, I'm like, this is Soda Popinski right here. All right. Like, that's what he looks like. And he's like boxing too. Like, yeah, that's this guy. But, in addition to him, and the fight scene was cool, is we also have that side piece of Marion in the scene, and she's like messing things up, right? She pulls the chocks off the plane. Now the plane's turning around. It's adding more chaos to the fight scene, which is great. And then she's like messing around by the controls of the cockpit, and she's actually doing good, shooting things up, and then gets herself locked in. And it's like, she's adding more drama to it. But I thought it was really cool on how it unfolded. And then at the end, it created enough of a problem to foil the plan of being able to fly this thing away. It blew the whole freaking plane up, and then back to Belloc. Now Belloc is mad again. He's like, Jones, right? He's like, Jones, he knows that something is going on here, and he's not so happy anymore. I thought it was well put together.
Yeah, it is neat to see that. Okay, this is definitely the turning point where Belloc is no longer happy with Indiana Jones. I totally pick up on that. So, Rick, any other thoughts for the sequence?
No, it's funny that Bob said all this stuff about Marion. I said the same shit. Like, she's fucking it up, but she's also kind of like haphazardly helping, but also fucking it up at the same time. And I also thought that the German mechanic reminded me of a video game. It wasn't Soda Popinski. I was thinking more along the lines of some character from like Street Fighter, because there's this scene where he's unbuttoned the right before the scene really got started with him starting to box. He actually like unbuttons his shirt and takes it off. Like that was his intro for the fight, like just like all fight, like during those Street Fighter intros, they all show up. They have their little motion, their emote, and then the fight begins. And that was his emote. He was taking his shirt off, getting ready to go, and now fight. And
nice.
I know that plot hole that you're talking about, Tim. The plot hole is Indiana Jones would never win in a fist fight against a German mechanic. Was that it?
No, I know what it is. It is.
I'm messing.
We're not there yet, but when we get there, I'll let you know what my thought is on that plot hole.
All right.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to follow the brothers here with their video game analogy, and there is another video game that the mechanic reminds me of, and I'm going to go back to an early 1980s Nintendo game, and I'm going to share it here on the screen. It is Karnov. Look at this guy. He's got the Arabian parachute pants, and he has a bald head and the
totally.
mechanic's mustache. So
yeah.
I'm like, that is totally
Yeah,
what
that
you guys
is.
are talking about. So yeah, that's the video game that popped in my head when I see that sequence. That and the Iron Sheik from
Yes.
the WWF.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm really
definitely.
showing my age there.
Camel Clutch, I think, was
Camel Clutch.
his
Yep.
finishing move. Yeah.
Yes, which just sounds dirty.
Thank God Joey's not here. We'd be going down a path none of us want to take.
Exactly. So yeah, so Marion kicks up the drama, kicks up the intensity of the sequence, and Indy manages to save the day, rescues Marion from the plane. The plane blows up, and now we find out that they're loading the Ark on a truck and they're taking it back to Cairo so that they can take it out on a ship. And of course, Indy's like, well, I got to stop that truck. And then that's where the action really ramps up. I mean, this is where Indy's now in his element. He is now a 1930s action hero. This is what we're watching. This is what we, paid our, $1.75 to go to the theater to see. And I think that this is just an awesome sequence. I mean, yes, there are some parallels in a future movie with The Last Crusade in a tank, but this is probably by far one of the best action sequences of a car chase. I mean, because Indy starts off, he's on a horse, then he's on a truck, he's fighting around the truck, he's now is being dragged underneath the truck, he's on top of the truck, he's back inside the truck, he's on the front of the truck. I mean, he is all over this thing, and he's just knocking Nazis out left and right. He's taking out other vehicles with this truck. I mean, it is like the Road Warrior meets Mad Max meets in the 1930s meets anything you can think of. I mean, this is by far probably my favorite sequence in the entire movie, is just this long drawn out car chase / action fight sequence. Anybody have any other thoughts on this great sequence?
So
I'll go to you first,
thank
Bobby.
you. At the start of that, when he's on the horse, and this is something we've talked a little bit about, but not really. It's the music, the Indiana Jones slogan music, right? Like, we know what it is. We can hear it anywhere. I can't really say it too well, right? But
that was
so
good.
he gets on this horse, and now it's like this very high positive moment, and we've got the theme song of Indiana Jones, and I was like riding away to go get him. And there's other times, and kind of missed a few of them already, but where we have this positiveness, and it does ramp up in this area. And he's on the trucks, and we're hearing more, and like every positive end, when I got that slogan, and I wanted to point that out, that it is very proper. Let's say timing is appropriate when this music comes in to be like, yeah, we're like sitting in our chair, like, yeah, I get reason to go get them, and I thought that was like, yeah, like that's my feeling about that. It was, and it continued all the way through.
Definitely. Yeah, the music ramping up definitely gives us this heroic moment for this whole sequence. Tim, how about you?
This is Spielberg at his finest. I mean, the man knows how to choreograph action. It's got, as you point out, you named every one. It's got every element you can want. It's a car chase. It's a fist fight. It's a gun battle. There's horses. There's trucks. There's cars. There's evil Nazis. What more can you want? In an action scene, everything's here, and it doesn't go so long that you're like, oh my God, just end this thing. And it's not so short. You're like, man, I wish there was just a little bit more. It feels right. It's paced well. It's exciting. It's action packed. Everything's acted well. What more can you say about it? It's just a lot of fun. It's a great sequence, and you just feel very satisfied when you get to the end of it.
Right. Well, how about you, Rick? You got an agreement? You got a counterpoint? You got anything you want to point out about this whole sequence?
Yeah, no, it was definitely great. I was like, I never really looked at it like Indiana Jones was playing GTA in the middle of his movie, but he's definitely Grand Theft Autoing it up. And I had to look this up because I could have swore that the driver of the truck was the same guy who plays as Mick Dundee in Crocodile Dundee, but apparently it is a stunt double for Michael Douglas in Romancing the Stone, and I think he might also play for Paul Hogan or something like that. But yeah, if you look, it looks just like Paul Hogan.
I know what you're saying.
Which
I thought the same thing. I was like, wait, who is that? No.
Yeah.
And because he was putting
Is
up
he
quite a
fighting
fight
crocodile?
too. He was really like holding his own.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And yeah, it was cool, man. I mean, it worked and everything, but those Germans inside that truck took a long time to mobilize, man. Like Indiana Jones was fighting these dudes in the cab for probably like 20 minutes and stuff before the people in the back of the truck were like, hey, maybe we should go and see what's going on, because we all saw Indiana Jones ride past in a horse, and our
Oh,
truck is
right,
getting
right.
hijacked. You know what I'm saying? Like, which it was cool and stuff, but it's like, dang, bro, these are definitely not the SS
Nah,
troops,
well,
okay?
No,
These are the B team right here.
put yourself in their shoes. They're like, man, this job just keeps getting worse and worse. Now these guys are going to want me to get out of this rolling truck that's driving at unbelievable speed, swerving all over the place, climb my ass around the truck and work my way towards the front to fight this lunatic. Oh no, man, I don't get paid enough for this. That's not happening at all.
All right, so I have a quick quiz question for you. There is a particular sound device used in the sequence. Do you guys know what it was?
Oh yeah, it's the Wilhelm scream.
Yes, the
Yes.
Wilhelm scream.
Gotta have it in every Spielberg and Lucas film. The Wilhelm's gotta be in there somewhere, man. When that guy gets ejected from the truck, the German.
So, and you know, another thing I need to point out too is, so not only is Andy being heroic at this moment, but he also has a split second of being human, because he actually gets shot in the shoulder by a Luger, and he still manages to pull this off. And you know, after surviving the day, he manages to pull right into Cairo. And I love the fact that either Sala got there ahead of time and warned somebody, or just this is a regular occurrence, but he's able to hide the truck conveniently in the marketplace. And I just thought that was pretty clever. I mean, I realize it's just a story device, but it was a clever use of the background of the surroundings.
It was solid, though. I thought about that too. I'm like, how did these guys know to hide this truck? And then I remembered that he told them to go to the town ahead of him and he was going to steal it. Like, well, how are you going to do that? I don't know, but I'll figure it out. Just be ready for me. So
Yeah,
they were ready for him.
And then there's a moment there where I'm like, okay, this really does show that Belloc has signed up with the bad guys, because you hear a dog bark and then it's kind of like squeals or squelches because it gets run over by the car, and it's all done in audio. I mean, if you're not paying attention, if you're not listening for it, you definitely hear it though. Like the dog barks, the car moves around, and then you hear the dog go arp, like he got run over or something. So that truly does another audio signal that these Nazis are bad guys.
I mean, honestly, I don't know if I would have probably put two and two together. I mean, Nazis could be good guys depending on, portrayal and stuff. But when they run over dogs, man, fuck that. All right, I ain't standing for that shit, okay?
So now that Indy has the Ark, Sala manages to charter a ship for him to get out of there, and he introduces him to the captain of the ship. And so now we have like this nice quiet moment with Marion and Indy as they're on the ship heading back to England, and heading back to the United States. And we get almost like a romantic sequence between the two, and Indy's kind of pointing out all of his scars and spots where he's hurting, almost kind of like another 1975 movie that Rick's only seen for the first time this year. What did you think of this romantic sequence, Tim?
For me, as far as romantic sequences go, I mean, it's just there. But the part that gets me is where he keeps complaining how much he hurts, and she's like, "Well, where doesn't it hurt?" And he's like, "Right here," and he points to the elbow. And I thought, that's kind of funny, It's just, this is the one spot I don't hurt. Otherwise, everywhere else in my body, don't touch me. So that kind of cracked me up. But it was a nice reunion moment for the two of them, and apparently she forgave him from tying her back up and leaving her in a tent. So very forgiving young lady there.
Yeah. Well, Bobby, what about you? What do you think of everything that's happened so far? Any thoughts on the captain or the ship, or this romantic moment between our two characters?
I think they get on the ship. They appear to be safe. Like the captain's like, yeah, we're going to take care of you. Then they're on the ship, and And yeah, the, kiss my elbow and then where else here? And then, right, she's kissing him on the lips. And next, like he passes out. And I thought it was appropriate because this guy was like busting his ass. Like he's like running around like everything you can do, jumping in and out of the truck, on the ground, like he's pulling himself up with that whip, like he's like, of course he's going to be practically dead tired. And, she's still fond of him, right? She's like ready for the break, but it's not over yet, and I thought it was pretty funny, like a nice little chuckle that she was interested in maybe a longer kiss and then some, and then he was just out. I want to say a typical guy out like that, but
He totally Burt Reynolds her. He did it bandit style. Look, I'm too poop to pop.
If only the hat covered his head, right? That's me. Yeah.
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 The fedora finality.
So, yeah. Rick, any other thoughts?
I thought that was a Sigma move, man. He like passed out just like that. However, that being said, I don't know if you guys noticed, in the morning when they woke up, I'm pretty sure they were wearing less clothes than what they had when they fell asleep.
Yes.
All right?
I agree. Right.
Just to put it out there. All right?
Well, they had to keep it family friendly before the lights went out.
Yes.
Then after the lights went out, he woke up at 3 a.m. and she was happy to brush her teeth. Keeping it family friendly here. So I thought it was kind of neat, though, that the captain points out that he's given them his cabin. So I'm like, yeah, if I'm the captain, I'm burning those sheets. And then, of course, Indy wakes up and he goes to check on things. And that's when we learn that, darn, they're being followed by a German U-boat. And Tim, is it just me or did that German U-boat look pretty familiar?
Well, it should, Matthew, because we covered that German U-boat in our Das Boot podcast when we covered that movie. They actually built those models for that film. And Spielberg kind of contacted the production company and said, hey, we'd like to have those for a couple days. And so they rented them out without actually telling the Das Boot production that they went to film. Like, where's our submarines at? They were just completely gone. So, yeah, that is the actual submarine model from Das Boot that was being filmed at the same time that this movie's being filmed. So, yeah. Good eye there, Matthew. Good eye.
Yep. And, of course, the Germans show up and they manage to steal back the Ark. They can't find Indy because the captain was smart enough to have Indy go hide somewhere. But they do take Marion. And now the Germans have left the ship. They're on the U-boat. They have the Ark. They have Marion. And Indy's nowhere to be found. The crew can't find Indiana Jones. But one guy points out, oh, there he is, as he's climbing up on top of the U-boat that hasn't gone underwater yet. And he doesn't have his fedora. But somehow we go from that sequence to another shot of the map, and they're magically inside of this harbor area on some secluded island. I want to know is, how did Indy get into the submarine? Where did he find a hiding spot?
He opened the screen door.
Well, I assumed in this case that the submarine didn't go underwater. I don't know how deep the Mediterranean Sea is, but sometimes they will operate those boats where it is above water, or that top part, and I don't know the name of that, but that doesn't go submerged.
So this is it. This is the plot hole I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That nobody ever asks, how does Indy make it all the way back? Because have any of you ever been to the Field Museum and gone through the Nazi sub that we have up there?
Yes.
Those things are small, tiny, and cramped. There's no way you're sneaking on to that sub and not getting detected. There is no place to hide. I mean, they hot bunk it. So when people, when the guy gets up for his shift, the other guy's getting in and going to sleep. Every available space is being filled with food or supplies or whatever. So there's no extra room when that sub's fully manned and fully stocked. So there is a deleted scene where Indy ties himself to the periscope with the whip. And that's how he's able to stay on the U-boat, and it does not submerge. It actually cruises on the surface all the way to the island. Now, I thought about this. I'm like, well, why would a submarine do this? and I've come up with only two reasons. And now we're past like the deleted scene to my speculation. But one, we're not at war yet because we're still we're still in the early 1990s here. So Hitler has not invaded Poland and not started World War II. And two, submarines move faster on the surface than they do below. And since time is the essence to get this to Hitler, they will probably run fast on the surface to get to these islands. Thus, Indy's able to stay on top of the boat tied to the periscope, so he doesn't fall off. And that's how he survives. So that is, again, another quintessential scene that I think would have been super important. They didn't have to show him staying on it the whole time, like he's traversing the seas and getting whipped around. Just show him like jump up there, get on that periscope and tie himself with the whip again, another 30 seconds, and that whole plot hole goes away. But that's what happens. But even when you watch the little scene with the map and the submariners, it almost appears like they might be under sea or whatever. But there's just no way. There's no way he gets in there without them detecting, because, again, there's only, I think, three ways you get in that sub, and that's the loading bay for the torpedoes and the front and aft, and they're both manned. If you go in those torpedo chambers, there's going to be guys in there, or going down the main area. And when you go in the top of that submarine and you start to go down, there is a spot where a guy sits right there all the time. So there's no way you're sneaking onto it. So he has to stay on top of it, or he's able to hold his breath for an incredibly long amount of time.
Well, the other thing that I also thought is, how did they get the Ark on the submarine? Because I'm pretty sure that the manhole to get into the sub is only so big.
So that's where you load the torpedoes.
Okay.
So that's bigger because you got to have a spot. So that Ark is only, again, going back to it, although it looks much bigger film-wise, it's really only 4.5 by 2.5 by 2.5. So it's, it's not that big. It's going to be about the same as getting a torpedo in that area. So where you load your munitions towards front, it's bigger than just the one, manhole that you would go down.
Gotcha.
I think that they probably took it out because it seems a little bit ridiculous, man. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm not taking a whip and tying it to some periscope and, hoping that they don't submerge in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. You're like shit out of luck. If they submerge, man, you're toast.
Yeah.
You're done for, So I think it's just a little bit far-fetched, the whole idea to explain it. So I think it's just better not to explain it at all and just leave it at that. But they should probably just not have used the sub. They should have just used the ship.
Yeah, that would have been smarter, I guess. But I guess that begs the question I'm going to ask everybody here on the panel. Did you ever think about it before you really analyzed the movie for the podcast? I never did. I always just went with it. Never thought about it twice, But now that I'm kind of analyzing the movie with questions or things I'd like to discuss, I was like, oh, that's a really huge big hole right there. Like, how did he make that? So that made me think of it. Did any of you guys ever think about it before this?
No, I thought of it when I watched it this time.
No, I didn't.
No.
Again, this adventure is just so fun. We're just willing to let there be plot holes and silliness because we just don't care. We're just having a great time with it, I think.
I wanted to point out, and maybe why it was overlooked. So he swims across, the waters and Matt said, there he is. And that's where we hear that theme song again. Dun, da, da, dun, da, 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 And I think maybe we are like watching it, like we're excited. Yeah, he's there. Yeah, we overlook the fact that he's going on a submarine, right? Like we kind of like forget that because we're like, oh, we're like in this moment of like, yeah, he's gonna go save the day, and we forget about it. That's we want to be positive, right? We're like we're rooting for him to win.
Yeah.
The heroism of the storyline overweighs the analytical part of
well
enjoying
said,
the
Matt.
movie. Yeah. So
I think the other question we have to ask ourselves, and this may be only one that Rick can answer. Listeners, what you don't know about the Dungeon Master is he spent the entire summer making whips. So he is the whip master in the group. He is the expert. So now, Rick, with all your whip making experience and now having seen how Indy uses the whip in here, and now, quote unquote, ties himself to the mast, to the periscope of a submarine to make it, all the way across the ocean. How do you feel a whip would hold up to all these things, and would it, do the things that Indy does with them effectively?
Nah, no. There's so many ways I would say no to that. Generally speaking, no. It's just cool as fuck. I mean, that's just what it is. You can't. I mean, like for instance in Temple of Doom, even in this one, when they're going across in the temple, they're trying to cross that pit. That's not how a whip works. If you whip onto something, it's not gonna lock into place and hold your weight. Like, that is not happening, man. And to tie it onto a periscope, I mean, you better have some real good rope skills to put that thing in a serious knot, because no.
Well, hang on. Can you at least whip someone holding a gun and smack the gun out of their hands?
If you were pretty good, you could potentially make that happen. But the idea that you're gonna make the gun go where you want it, I don't see that. But I could see, just from the sheer pain of hitting flesh, that somebody would release the gun. I could see that happening. Yeah.
And he can say this with authority because we've all sat in my backyard with his whips, all practicing, making them crack and stuff. And Rick can make them do all kinds of cool stuff. I can make them crack only one way, and then the other half of the time I'm trying to do anything else Rick's doing. I'm just inflicting pain on myself because it's coming back and hitting me.
So, Rick, would you say you follow Jacques the Whipper?
Jacques the Whipper? No, I don't know. I've never heard. What is that?
Oh, check him out. So he's one of those Renaissance guys from Ren Fairs, and he cracks the whip, but he does it to songs.
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah. There's a number of people that do stuff like that. He uses usually I think he uses some shorter whips and stuff, which is fine, and that's cool. I've seen him before. Yeah.
Now Indy's supposedly 10 feet. That's the length of his whip, is what I understand. Is the one that, I mean, depending on the scene, they changed the length of it, but the one that he officially carries is like 10 feet long.
Let me put this out there for all of you Indiana Jones fans who's like, yeah, this whip thing is super cool. And you show up Hollywood Studios, Florida, and you're like, hey, they sell whips. I'm going to go ahead and give you a consumer tip here. If you're looking for a whip that you want to put on a mantle to just show, fine, get it. If you're looking for a whip that's going to be a whip that you can use as a whip, do not buy it. Do not buy it. Don't buy it. It's not going to be any good. If you're going to buy a whip to actually use as a whip, you have to buy a legitimate whip, and those things aren't cheap.
Well, this has been Whip Talk from Man Review Podcast. So, gentlemen, let's go ahead and dive into the tail end of this movie. So, Indy manages to sneak aboard the submarine. He gets all the way to the island, and we know he didn't get into the submarine because when he gets to the island, he takes out a Nazi soldier and steals his uniform. Had he smuggled himself onto the submarine, he probably would have stolen a uniform from there. And of course, we get a little gag where he's like putting his costume or his uniform on, and it doesn't quite fit right. And the guy gives him another soldier sees him and starts giving him a dressing down, and he takes that guy's uniform instead. I thought that was a pretty kind of clever scene about Indy's use of the area around him and trying to be a hero here. What did you think of that sequence there, Tim?
It's a cool sequence. I actually get distracted because I'm more fascinated with the submarine pen than I am anything else, only because that's actually the legitimate Nazi submarine pen in France. It still exists to this day. That's also, they use it for Das Boot as well, because, when the Germans would make these fortified things, they made them so well that it's going to take 10,000 years before they crumble apart. They're built to endure. And so it's an actual legitimate, Nazi submarine pen, and it adds to the authenticity of this. I don't know how you would reproduce such a thing except on small scale, and you wouldn't have got such cool shots. These days you could create it with, 3D or, with computer graphics, but back then, no. But yeah, I think it's a great backdrop to help carry the story, and then, yeah, Indy he plays the thing. I mean, he's crawled off that submarine because he's apparently been tied to a periscope for, God knows how long.
He ain't wet anymore, though.
he ain't wet, and he's, stolen clothes that obviously are, 2 sizes too small for him. And that German comes along, and he's basically, giving him the business is going to go turn him in because he thinks he's just gold brigging and, napping and stuff. And, and he kicks the crap out of the next guy so he can just keep moving up on his clothes or whatever. And I do like the childish, high school, shoulder check that he does on Belek.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, that was a really gutsy move, considering that if he'd called you out on that, game over. Like, why would you try to take that cheap, high school kind of bullying shot on this guy when so much is riding on your success as far as, being able to rescue Marion and get the Ark back? So it seemed like a really childish move for him to do. But again, it's kind of funny. You're like, yeah, that's what you get. So again, we're willing to let it go because it's like, yeah, that's what that guy gets because he's a jerk.
Yeah. Well, how about you, Bob? Any thoughts on Indy showing up on the island?
To that point with the shoulder hit there, it was gutsy and it was extremely bold. And I thought, gosh, you could have got caught here, and I could just reason that he's Indiana Jones. He's gonna do it. He does and gets away with it. And Bullock is a little more reserved, not really one to call out like that. And now he's a little out of the element too. He's going somewhere else on this island, like he's probably never been there before in that kind of location. But yeah, I thought it was risky. I really did, but that kind of shows the character of Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think part of it too is also, Bullock's not in the right mindset right now because he's always thinking, all right, I have the Ark, I got to open this puppy up, we got to see what's inside. He's got that on his mind, so he's not really paying attention to his surroundings. So yeah, I think Indy, shoulder checking him is not going to be high on his radar because he's more focused on what he's got in hand. He's kind of happy. Yeah. He's also got Marion too because surprise, surprise, he's got the girl again. Rick, any other thoughts about that?
So when I actually showed the little map, you know what I'm saying, for where they're going from the middle of the Mediterranean to the island, and I'm pretty familiar with the different locations in a lot of places around the world, including the Mediterranean. And I was like, okay, I saw Crete, and then they go to this other island, and I was like, I'm not familiar with this island, like, at all. So I looked it up. Apparently, it's a fictional island that's called Geheimhaven. That is supposedly the secret German island base. So this also begs a question at the end of the movie, when all is said and done, how the fuck do they get off this island? If it is a secret German base, I like the whole island is a secret German base island, So how do you get off the island with the Ark, So I don't know.
I have some thoughts on that, but we'll wait till we get to the end.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so just briefly though, the whole thing with Marion and crap, where did I go? I lost it. Hold on, sorry.
Then they start walking to, because he talks to the other guy, the colonel. He talks Colonel Dietrich into wanting to open it up, right? Like, should we know that there's something there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So because Bullock convinces him to open it up, and of course, he's like, I don't know, I don't like the idea of this Jewish ceremony to open up this thing,
Yeah,
why do you sound like this?
He's like this is
because I'm going with what I know.
It's crazy that the Nazi German would be like, I don't know about this. This seems kind of Jewish.
Get that because they realized they got all the way through this film with all these Germans and Nazis, and they didn't say anything about Jews at all. So like, we probably better throw a little something in there about the Jews. Like, and his line is actually, I don't think I'm very comfortable with this Jewish ceremony, so because again, it would be a Jewish ceremony that would open this thing up because it was the Jews who, had it. It makes sense. So that was their kind of tie-in to show, the Nazis' distaste for the Jews. And, as far as Belek's concerned, he's like, he's less worried about getting it to Hitler quickly. He just wants to, he wants to see what's inside too. He wants to see what it's going to do. He's got a new toy. He wants to play with it before he turns it over to the person who ultimately is going to get to own it. So he wants to play with it. And he does that by coercing this officer going, well, we can box it up and we can bring it to Hitler. And, how are you going to feel if we present it to him and you open it up and it's a whole lot of nothing? So would you rather open it here and test it out, or you want to just roll the dice? And the guy's like, yeah, we'll go ahead and do the Jim and send him money, So yeah, it's or the Jewish ceremony.
Yeah. And of course, as they're on their way with this long walk, Indy shows up with a rocket launcher and he's, threatens to blow up the Ark unless they hand over Marion. And, it's actually, Bullock that calls Indy's bluff and winds up capturing Indy and takes them alongside with Marion. And that's pretty much where we get them tied to a pole and we get to watch this Jewish ceremony as they open up the Ark. And first off, we should probably point out that, okay, so Bullock is a Frenchman and he's dressed in a high priest outfit for a Jew. And I'm sure he didn't do the ceremonial cleansing, the sacrificial altar. I'm sure he didn't set up everything he needed for the days prior to this to opening up the Ark like he's supposed to, as if he were a high Jewish priest. He wasn't one of the select people. So yeah, exactly. I'm not surprised to see what happens with the wrath of God and the Ark. What did you guys think of the whole lead up to this sequence?
Well,
I'll go to you first, Bobby.
So this is the scene that I thought was that flaw when Timmy, you were asking about some flaw, which ended up being about the submarine. But I thought there was no way that Indiana was going to blow this Ark up. Like, he's got this, bazooka. Like, there's no way he's going to do that. It's like a bluff that probably everyone could see, which is why, Bullock is like, do it. And it's like, yeah, shit. Then he got caught. Like, I thought maybe he could have had a better plan to try to do something, but, as the movie goes, it got them tied up to be in the position that they're in.
Yeah. And you have to be right, Bobby, that Panzer, he wasn't going to blow that up with that Panzerfaust. He just wasn't going to do it. The guy knows, and he's all about recovering artifacts and making sure they end up in a museum. This is his MO all the way through. And if I remember correctly, we see that at the beginning of The Last Crusade too, where he's the kid and he's chasing the guy down and he's like, this belongs in a museum. Like, this has been embedded in him since he was a child. Like, these things belong to the people. They need to be in museums so everybody can see them. And this guy knows what makes it needs tick, because they were really good buddies. So he's like, yeah, go ahead and blow it up. Go ahead, just blow it up. And he's like, shit, you're right. I was just like, back and say, he's like, he knew I would never do this, especially something this historic, this, prevalent, and it being like, it's the box of God. Like, if you ever want to bring the wrath of a God on, I don't know, blow up his communication box. Yeah, that's going to put you pretty high up in the list of a quick trip to hell, I think. So yeah, Eddie's not going to ever pull that trigger, and he knows it.
Rick, you got any thoughts?
So you're saying this is God's capacitor? Yeah. Is that what you're saying?
So they were putting it in front of the Jews were taking it through the desert so they could build up all this static electricity.
Just dragging it.
As soon as they get to the walls of Jericho, they just put two sticks to the walls and it just goes boom.
They're like, everybody shuffle your feet double time as they go up to the wall. They got guys throwing carpet in front of them as they're marching.
We are, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and it's cool that each one of them dies a little different, because you got Tote who does exactly what you said. It's that melting of the face, which had never been done before. And that's, basically like wax and different things that they put a heat lamp, let it slowly melt. They just filmed it, over time. But then you got the guy to the left and his head gets sucked in like a vacuum was attached to it, so. And then, but the middle guy is kind of funny because they basically blow his head up literally with a shotgun. And when it went to get rated, they're like, oh, this makes it an R. And they're like, oh, we can't have that. So they put that fire in front of him to diffuse the, basically the burst of shotgun that blows the head apart like that. And then they're like, okay, PG. So that's kind of how they got away with it, was kind of diffusing the gore with the fire or whatever. But I just like that everybody dies a little bit different. I thought that was kind of a cool effect too.
What about you, Bud? What do you think of the effects?
saw some special scenes behind the scenes about the making of this scene that we're talking about. And the person creating that had explained how he had many tries of creating a composition that was able to like maybe liquefy a little bit more with a different heat temperature, and had to get it just where it was just a little bit where not a lot of heat would allow it to melt. So it would look like it was melting. And then they had different layers within Major Toe. I think it was Major Toe, yeah. Toe, where he's the one that had the blood, where it went from like his regular face then to red, and they had different color layers within that. So it was really cool on how they put that all together. And they definitely had a lot of time going back and forth, but it was really neat to see that.
I really liked the ghost sequences too, the souls coming out of the ark, and the fact that you see like this female figure like floating around and then coming over, and then it does like a very I would almost say Ghostbuster-esque sequence where they goes from this beautiful face to like a horrific, skeletal face. I thought that was really cool. Yes. So like your static electricity charge comment.
Yeah, because they had recorded footage. They actually had like the tape rolling as they were opening up this ark, and I didn't really connect those dots even though I saw it happen. But yeah, that is pretty neat.
It does actually show the lightning going right through the camera too at one point. Like it goes through the generators and stuff, and then right through the camera, and then through the guy behind the camera.
Yeah.
So that, thus, I think representing that all the film of this event is now destroyed.
And like you had mentioned earlier, Tim, he tells Marion to close his eyes, and while all this stuff is happening, I thought that was kind of neat because everyone that's watching is totally annihilated and destroyed. Whether it was through the lightning bolts or through face melting or, exploding heads, which I thought was really neat. And then the other thing that I thought was rather clever is so they took the top off, and then all this stuff is happening. And then there's like this huge, like kind of explosion that lifts the top up, and then it all comes funneling back into the ark. And then the thing just kind of lands perfectly right on top to close everything back up. And I thought that was kind of cartoonish.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was the most believable part. Like guys, like I put the lid back on Pandora's box here.
Yeah, like it's
putting everything back in the box where it belongs.
Yeah. No.
So Marion and Indy are the only ones who survive. So I'm assuming they're the only ones left on the island. Like this thing wiped out everybody on the island. Would be my guess. Thus leaving us with the question, how do they get off the island? Tim, I believe you might have a theory on that.
But before I give the theory on that, I want to back it up a little bit, since I know we're at the end of the film now. And so if I may for a moment, Matt, I'd like to ask two questions of everybody.
Okay.
One, so there's a fan theory out there that basically it was popularized in Big Bang Theory, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but that all these events would have happened whether Indy was there or not. He really is insignificant to the entire story. Because if you think about it, no matter what, at the end, the Nazis, they still end up getting the Ark. They still end up opening it, and they all die. So this would have happened even because Indy tries to prevent it. They still get it. He's there, the whole deal. So he really is insignificant in the grand scheme of things, because everything that would have happened, regardless of his interference or not, they would have found it just the same too. Because they would have, instead of him having the staff, they would have found it at the bar when they went to get her. So they'd have had the proper piece. They would have found it. They'd have dug it up. They'd have brought it to the island and opened it up, and then they all would have died. And then seemingly, I would guess that at some point, High Command would be like, hey, that submarine's there. We haven't heard anything. We should send somebody else over to this island and see what the hell's going on. And then they would have gotten the Ark, right? So Indy really doesn't technically play any part in this. So therefore, I believe that most of that theory is true. And I don't know, how do you guys see it at this point before I go any further? Do you kind of agree with that assessment?
Not necessarily. There is one key point that I think people forget about, and that is
if Indy wasn't in this movie or Indy didn't get involved, Marion would be dead.
This is true. Well, no, that's not even necessarily true.
Marion would be in Nepal.
Yeah, she would have
But
been.
the Germans came to Nepal to get the headpiece from her. All right, she wasn't going to sell it to them. Toth threatened her with the hot poker. You know, chances are they probably would have tooled her up, maybe killed her, did something to get the headpiece, because I guarantee that she wasn't willingly going to give it up. So my theory is...
Wait, hold on a second. They were tailing Indiana Jones. It's possible they would have never found her. The only reason why they knew where she was because they followed Indiana Jones.
Right.
True.
Yeah,
She was in the middle of nowhere, man.
Okay.
My problem with the theory would be, I don't think that Belloc would have had the opportunity to convince the Major to stop at that island. I think they would have just got it on the plane and gone straight to Germany.
Sure. Yes,
Okay.
because they would have not had a blown up plane. They would have went right to Germany, and then they would have been opening up the Ark in front of Hitler.
Right.
But the Ark, I don't think would have ever made it back to the U.S. It would have just stayed probably in Germany, and it would have never
German hands,
been in a crate. Yeah, still would have stayed in German hands.
Right. Okay, so I some of it I agree with you guys on. I think she'd be dead. Well, I don't know if she'd be dead, because even though we're like, oh, he had the hot poker and stuff, she was only that bold with him because she knew Indy had been there. If she didn't realize Indy was there, she might have been far more willing to deal with them, because she knew there was nobody else there to save her. So she might not have been so hardcore on it, and it might have just like sold it off to them or whatever in fear of what they would do to her. That could go either way. I'm not sure. I think Belloc still wanted to open it, so I think he would have figured out a way to have them open it one way or the other along the lines. I think that was going to happen no matter what. Because I think he's also like, I don't want to bring this to Hitler and to have him be like, hey, this is nothing, and then shoot me, shoot Belloc, because the guy, wasn't exactly playing with a full deck all the time, even early on. Things aggravated Hitler. Bad things happened to people who caused that to happen. But I think the key where Indy comes in and does make a profound difference in this, although we know that he does end up saving Marion. So we'll say, one for Indy, he does absolutely save her. So that, no matter, we don't know what, she's kind of like Schrodinger's cat. We don't know whether she'd have been alive or dead, because we don't know how this film would have went. But we know definitely he does save her. But here's where it is at the end. Yes, he's at a secret Nazi base, but all the Germans died. They were all there. So they're all dead. Because basically seeing everybody that was on that island, I'm going to guess, knowing what I know about that submarine, that was probably the entire contingent of submariners. They're all there. So they're all dead. So Indy probably found some kind of communication equipment, got it to work, called the Americans, and that's how they came and got it. And that's how they got it out of there. Because otherwise the Nazis would eventually come along and have discovered that all their guys died, but it would still be sitting there waiting for them to find again. You know what I mean? Because if Indy wasn't there, they're all dead. They're like, oh, something bad happened here. Maybe we shouldn't open it, but let's go ahead and put it on the boat and you'd be back in Germany, like you said. So I think having him on the island, being able to communicate right away that, like you need to send somebody immediately. Obviously, they're Mediterranean. There's some U-boats hanging out, over in Britain and stuff that can come along and get them, and things like that. France, all that kind of stuff there. Again, we're not at war yet. That's the thing we have to remember. So there's plenty of boats still around the Mediterranean that are Allied friendly, so that they come and got this thing. So I think that's the key moment that wrecks that whole theory that Indy saves the day by just happenstance of being on that island after all the Germans die and be able to call somebody to come pick him up with the Ark.
Gotcha.
So that's where I'm sitting with it. But took me a long time when I first heard that theory, especially in Big Bang. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch, they're right. He really serves no purpose in this whole show. But having watched it now, I believe that, up to the end point, he really didn't change the course. It all would have made it to that. But and then again, that begs the question too, would they have gone to that island or not? And I think, Matt, you pointed out, and I don't know. I don't know if that's where they would end up if they'd have just put on the plane, because we don't know how they were going to get out of Egypt. Were they still going to put on the U-boat, or were they going to? I think originally they were going to put on that plane.
They were going to put on a plane and then fly.
I don't know where the plane was flying, though, because that was a long-distance plane, so I don't know if it had made it to Germany from Egypt.
Yeah, I want to say that they were planning on flying it straight to Germany using the plane. So
okay,
but no,
it's an interesting theory.
Yeah, and it was actually a question I was going to have later on, but hey, all right, we got it covered.
Sorry
problem.
to beat you.
Not a problem. The joy of reviewing an episode or a movie is you never know where things are going to pop in at. All right, so the Nazis are dead. Indy's on the island. Somehow he gets off the island, and the Ark is now in U.S. hands, the U.S. government hands, and it's being analyzed by top men. Which men? Top men, and thus ending the film. So I thought it was a kind of clever ending, and I think it's been parodied enough times on Family Guy and numerous other places with the whole line from top men. Before we get to our death clock, does anyone else have any final questions, comments, concerns, or theories they want to throw at us over Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, or Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark?
I do have two.
Okay.
So one, I think, obviously we know that now there's not top men looking at that. The American government's just going to lock it away. I think it probably ties into Warehouse 13 TV series. That's where it's at.
Gotcha.
I mean, really, if you're going to put it somewhere, if you've never watched that series, you should check it out because they got all kinds of crazy stuff that they collect on the Warehouse 13. But that's where I think it's sitting. And I think they knew it was so dangerous that they just needed to box it up and do not open this thing no matter what. This is not a break glass situation. Do not open this under any circumstances. That's just my comment on that, my theory that it ties in with Warehouse 13. But second, it's another question I want to ask everybody on the panel. Where do you think the Ark is today?
Oh, I know where it's at.
We know it's gone. Supposedly it disappears. So I'd like to hear everybody's theory of where you think it's at. So Rick, we'll start with you.
In real life or in
real life?
Oh,
in real life. Where do you think the Ark is? We're all going to assume it exists. So it's a real deal. Where do you think it is?
It's I would almost say for sure in Ethiopia. There's a specific church where it has a guardian that is locked in this church. It's fenced all the way around, and if I remember correctly, there are armed guards on the outside of it, and you could speak to the caretaker, who's typically an elder, and in many cases, the person who is the caretaker, this elder,
is he blind?
Yep. Usually, after a couple weeks, the elder becomes blind, and it's happened numerous times. There's been a caretaker for this place for a long, long time. It do says that it is the Ark, and it does have a very good case for it, especially because there is a connection that didn't when it wasn't known to the Europeans before the Age of Exploration until they rounded the Cape of Good Hope. And they went into Ethiopia and found out that there was this whole group of Africans that were Christians. And they were like, what is this? So as the story goes, there was, I think it was like a wife or something of, I can't remember if it was Solomon or if it was one of his heir or not heirs, but
I think it was his son. I think it was Solomon's son.
That brought it down to Ethiopia, and it had stayed there safe for ever since.
Well, you kind of took my answer because I had also seen a documentary, histories, mysteries, and stuff like that, and I saw the thing on Ethiopia, and I have to agree. I mean the pseudoscience / clues kind of all point that way. So,
Bobby?
I would have just guessed Egypt. I had not heard anything about Ethiopia. Very neat story, but I have not heard that.
Now, I've heard the Ethiopia one, but my only caveat to disagreeing with that is that the church that it's supposedly at has burned down. And so I don't think, and then they rebuilt it. So I don't feel like it's actually there anymore. If it was ever there, I don't think it's really there. I think the Knights Templars were looking for it, and I think the church got very nervous about that, and I believe that's why they disbanded the Knights Templars like they did, because they didn't want these guys getting a hold of it. And then I think at some point when it did get found, it got brought back. I think it's in Rome. I think the Vatican's got it.
I would say that the Vatican probably has the supposed Grail, if there is a cup of the Last Supper, you know what I mean, as well as maybe other relics. But I don't know about this one.
I just can't see the Vatican allowing it to be anywhere else if they knew like it was at that place in Ethiopia. I can't see them allowing it to stay there.
Well, if I learned anything from the book, The Da Vinci Code, I'm thinking I'm going to change my answer and that it's at Roslin Chapel in Scotland.
There is some claims by the Irish that it's in Ireland, but it's pretty weak. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting. But yeah, the Ethiopia story is very intriguing. It does got a lot of things that would lead you to believe it's there. But it's the thing that gets me is that the church where it was at got burned down and then rebuilt. And I feel like if it was there, it would have gotten destroyed or moved. But yeah, I think with the influence, I mean, I know the Catholic influence in the world has waned to some degree, but the Vatican holds a lot of power and they've got a lot of relics and things there. And I just see them, if they know where it's at, they went and got it. So,
gotcha. All right,
because they've got places where nobody's allowed to go in the Vatican. There's places things that you cannot see. Like you have to be high up in the in the religious order. Pretty much the papacy. You have to be pretty high up in order to be able to read, see, or do this. I mean, they got books that people aren't allowed to read, all kinds of stuff. So,
hey, man, I just looked it up. That church never burned.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that church.
Okay.
The Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axiom, that is not burned down.
Okay, I stand corrected then, because I was under the impression that it had burned down at one point and gotten rebuilt.
Well then, I think that brings us to our death clock, our wonderful rating system for our podcast. So, Bobby, since you're new to the podcast, our death clock rating is basically you've just watched Raiders of the Lost Ark. Is it worth taking time off of that limited time that we have in life, our death clock, to sit down and watch this film? It's a yes or no answer. Where do you stand? Do you think Indiana Jones is worth wasting your time to watch?
Yes.
You can elaborate a little bit if you want.
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah, this is the beginning of a wonderful series of movies, and what we've covered here already, like absolutely, I own the movie. You guys probably also own the movie, and I would say it is best to watch this one first. I'm like a believer in starting from the beginning of a series and watching them through. I am a little more partial to one of the others. However, hands down, yes, this absolutely. There's a reason why this movie is like I think it was. What was I read? The Library of Congress. They put it in the. I think I wrote it down here. Preservation. Yeah, it's like preserved in the National Film Registry.
Yes.
Like there's a reason why that's the case. So yeah, absolutely, hands down, yes.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about the going through the book of 1001 movies is that practically all the films are preserved in the Library of Congress, and there's a reason for it, and the reason why they're in this book. I want to kind of quote Joey on this one and just say duh, but no, I do have a well thought out answer, and yes, I agree, it is worth taking time off your death clock to watch. Like Star Wars, this movie is a cultural icon in the film industry. I think it further seals Harrison Ford as an action star and gives us the swashbuckling thrill of the 1930s all over again, and I think it is probably the best Steven Spielberg film to date. Tim, your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. It's a must watch. I mean, this is it's an adventure film, and I mean, there's a lot of action films out in the world, but there's not a lot of great adventure films, especially that takes the basis of those early 30s, 40s, and 50s serial adventure films and just cranks it up into something that's just extraordinarily awesome. I mean, it just, even as you watch it as a young kid and you're just like, yeah, this is cool. Like, I want to be an archaeologist and things like that, go to exotic places, find treasures, go through cool, temples and all kinds of stuff. It just stokes that sense of adventure in anybody who watches it. And it's family friendly. It's a lot of fun. And it's going to, spawn several more movies that are very entertaining as well. So you can't lose with this franchise. Well,
unless you're talking about the newest ones.
Maybe when you get to Crystal Skulls, maybe not so much. The first three movies are pretty much, solid gold.
You're solid. Yeah, solid.
Yeah. All right, Rick, how about you?
So, Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark is 100% a must watch, whether it be for the story, the action, the music, or the whirlwind of emotions, which it's with its ups and downs. It's pretty much all there. While the writing could potentially be a little bit better, it's still a total knockout. Doesn't take away, like we've mentioned and Tim has mentioned multiple times. Even when considering the plot holes, it's still a spectacular movie. It's a great watch for everyone, and if you haven't seen it at least once, then it's like no question. You got to go see this one.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I do want to poke fun at what we've been saying tonight. We've been calling it Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, but actually, I want to give a tip of the hat to our boys down under, and the fact that its original title is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah.
Much like Road Warrior and Mad Max 2, it is Raiders of the Lost Ark. It didn't change its title until 1999 when it came out on VHS with the rest of the Indiana Jones films. So
the only reason you need to change that title is so that you can make sure they all are alphabetically correct. It's like, because you have the conundrum, what do I do? Do I put it as Raiders when I put it on the shelf, or do I put it with the Indiana Jones ones, even though it doesn't say Indiana Jones? It's maddening.
Yes. All right. Well, that brings us to our feedback. Folks, we love to hear from you, so please leave us some feedback. You can email our show at manreviewpodcast@gmail.com and have your email read right here on the show, or leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify and we'll read it here too. And guess what, gentlemen? We do have some feedback tonight. That is correct.
Sweet.
We had a lengthy and wonderful comment left for us on YouTube. A special shout out to Noelle from at Noelle Mar on YouTube. She left a great comment for our review for Platoon. She made a comment of our comparison of Barnes to an evil John Wayne and found that interesting, since this movie is supposed to be a counterpoint to the film Green Berets. If you guys want to read that entire thing, like I said, it's rather lengthy. I'm not going to read it here. But I do have it in the show notes, and you can go check it out on YouTube and in our comments section under the Platoon episode. So yeah, and if anyone has any thoughts or counterpoints to Noelle's comments, I'll turn it over to the floor.
I absolutely agree. It's definitely a counterpoint to the John Wayne film. Like I said, I think I mentioned that when we were going through Platoon, that a lot of the Vietnam, World War II films are very patriotic. The Americans can do no wrong. The evil to which we fight can do no right. And this was very much a contrast that basically shows the dirty laundry of our country and how some of our wars are fought. So yeah, I 100% agree.
Gotcha. Rick, Bobby, you got any comments or thoughts on Platoon while we're here?
I haven't seen Platoon in a long time. Long time, and I did not see the review that you guys did on that, which I would have been better off seeing the movie recently.
If only you were a subscriber, Bobby, then you would be able to know when we posted it, and you could have went and checked it out.
Funny you say that. I was telling my wife, I'm like, I've been a subscriber for, I don't know, months now on Spotify. And I'm like, I don't get alerts. I'm like, I got to look at my settings and see what's going on. Because I'm not getting like alerts. And I'm like, I don't know why, but
Yeah,
I am a subscriber.
Because we post almost every week.
Yes, you can basically hear us every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time or Central Time. So,
hey, and by the way, look, I really appreciate the comment. I'm not really going to speak to it, but I am going to say this. For those of you who haven't, there was recently a video put out, a review put out for the video Phantom of the Opera. And I have to say that watching the I watched the 1929. The original was what, 1925?
Mm-hmm.
The 1925 version is like, I wouldn't watch it, bro. However, watch the review. The review was fun. The review was very fun.
Yeah.
It's don't spend your time watching the movie. Just watch our review and have a good time with that, because that is actually pretty good.
I was actually given a verbal comment by somebody that said, you know what, that your review was far more entertaining than that movie. I would never watch the movie, but the review was fantastic.
Nice. Awesome. I just want to say, Bobby, thanks for being a part of our show tonight. I'm glad you came by. I'm glad you picked out this movie to review. Thank you so much for being a part of our show this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invite. And hopefully I'll get another one sometime. But yeah, it was wonderful. It was a blast. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys very much.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
all right, and our favorite Timu version of Bobby, Rick. Where can others let us know?
Wow.
Sorry, I couldn't finish that without laughing. All right, so Rick, where else can our listeners hear your talk about all things gamer related?
All right, so if you play any tactical or strategy RPGs, if you play any Souls or Souls-like game, and you want to find information about it, especially if you're struggling with any of these games, you want some tips and tricks and stuff like that, you can come to my YouTube channel. It is a Dungeon Master Elite. There's no spaces. It's Dungeon Master Elite. And I have videos on all these sorts of games, so things like Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark, Tactics, Ogre, Reborn, Dark Souls, whether it be Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Elden Ring, any of those things, and many of the other adjacent games. I have walkthroughs, and like I said, tips and tricks. So feel free to come by and learn a couple things, and I'm sure you won't be disappointed.
All right. Thanks for listening to Middle Age Movies Podcast and our review of Raiders of the Lost Ark. We hope you've enjoyed it, because I know we were happy to whip it out for you. And if you did enjoy the review, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with your friends. Help us grow the MAP community so we can continue to keep you from wasting your precious death clock on crappy movies.
Follow us on Facebook, X, Blue Sky, and Instagram. Have a comment or suggestion? Then email the show at manreviewpodcast@gmail.com.
I 100% agree with Noelle's comment on her last paragraph. Definitely. Other than that, thanks, stay cool, and bye, everyone.